I was at my lowest point, standing in the middle of the third high school teacher's office in Sangzhou. The June heat was suffocating. Above me, an old ceiling fan groaned with every slow, heavy rotation. My homeroom teacher, Wang Defa, slid a printed document across the desk toward me. He told me I couldn't cut it in Sangzhou anymore. He wanted me to sign away my rights. Earlier that morning, I had awakened my talent. While others became powerful warriors, I was just a life-class professional, a mere gatherer. I had no combat ability. To Wang Defa, that meant I was useless for the upcoming National College Entrance exam. He wanted me to give my martyr's family bonus points to a student named Wang Xiang. Those 40 points were the difference between an ordinary life and a spot at the prestigious Qingbei Martial Arts University. My heart tightened. 2 years ago, my father, Lin Yuanshan, and my sister, Lin Qing, disappeared during a high-level dungeon exploration. They were declared dead, honored as martyrs for the country. Those 40 bonus points were the only thing I had left of them. It was the last bit of comfort I held in my soul. Now, they wanted me to just hand it over. I looked past the teacher. Wang Xiang was sitting there, leaning back in his chair with his legs crossed. He watched me with cold, arrogant eyes. His family was rich and powerful in Sangzhou. He had awakened as an A-grade magic warrior, and he acted like he owned the world. I don't agree, I said, shaking my head. Wang Defa's face twisted into a mask of fake disappointment. He told me I was being selfish. He said this was for the school's collective honor. I took a deep breath. My hands were balled into fists under the table. I asked him how he could say that. This was my father's and sister's lives we were talking about. Why should I give that to someone else? Wang Xiang let out a scoffing laugh. He stood up, tilted his head, and walked over to me. He told me he was being nice by even asking. He offered me a job in his family's business as a low-level gathering laborer, making a few $1,000 a month. Then his voice turned ice cold. He told me if I didn't sign, he'd make sure I never worked again. He said he'd block my sales and make me a pariah in Sangzhou. He wasn't threatening me. He was stating a fact. My vision blurred with rage. I was already at my lowest. My future looked dim, and here was the star student, the boy who already had everything, trying to strip away my last shred of dignity. Wang Xiang pulled a bank card from his pocket and slapped it onto the desk. He told me to stop acting and take the 30,000 yuan. He said it was enough for a bottom feeder like me to live on for 2 years. Wang Defa chimed in, telling me that Wang Xiang would become a top-tier warrior who could protect the country. He actually said my father and sister would be proud of me for giving up the points. Proud. My family died on the front lines while people like this stayed behind to hoard power and money. Now they were bullying a martyr's son for his inheritance. I looked Wang Defa in the eye and asked if he even deserved to be called a teacher. His face stiffened, a flash of anger crossing his eyes before he settled back into his fake, calm tone. He claimed he was just thinking about my future. I'll say it one last time, I said, my voice steady but sharp. My father and sister gave their lives for this. No matter how much money you offer, I will never sign. Wang Xiang snapped. He cursed at me, losing his cool. He told me I was dead meat. I didn't stay to listen. I stood up, walked to the door, and told them both that they would never get my points. I told them I'd be waiting for whatever they tried to do next. I walked out of the school gates, my mind racing. The world felt incredibly unfair. Was I really destined to be stepped on just because I was a life-class professional? Suddenly, a cold, electronic voice exploded in my head. System initialized. You have awakened the Supreme Infinite Collection system. Collection skill upgraded to Infinite Collection. You can now plunder the source attributes and talents of all things. My heart skipped a beat. A normal gatherer just picked up plants and rocks. But this? Plundering the source? I opened my status panel. Class, Gatherer. Level, 1. Attributes, Strength 5, Agility 5, Spirit 5, Physique 5. Talent, Infinite Collection. I stopped by the side of the road. A patch of foxtail weeds grew there, stubborn and trampled by passers-by. I reached out and touched one. A faint white light flashed. Asterisk collection successful. You have gathered one foxtail weed. Asterisk. Asterisk perfect collection triggered. You have plundered a trace of life source. Asterisk. Physique attribute permanently increased by 1. I froze. A surge of warmth flooded my body. It was a strange, powerful energy that made my skin tingle. I could actually feel myself becoming stronger. I looked down at the weed. The vibrant green leaf had turned gray and brittle, crumbling into dust in the wind. I took a sharp breath. This wasn't just gathering. This was total theft. And with a simple weed from the roadside, I had just gained permanent power. After I left, Wang Xiang's face turned a bruised shade of purple. He was livid. He told his uncle, Wang Defa, that they shouldn't have bothered negotiating with me at all and should have just changed the name on the records. But Wang Defa shook his head. He explained that the principal wouldn't allow it without my signature. Then, he gave a cold, nasty smile. He told Xiang not to worry because, as my class teacher, he was the one who wrote my graduation evaluation. If he gave me a failing grade, I wouldn't even be able to get into a bottom-tier vocational school. Wang Xiang let out a chilling laugh. He didn't care about the school. He just wanted that bonus point for his university application. He looked out toward the school gates with murder in his eyes. He wanted to see if I'd show up at the beginner dungeon tomorrow. If I didn't go, it proved I was just a useless gatherer, and the principal wouldn't protect me anymore. And if I did go, his voice dropped to a sinister whisper. He promised I'd go in, but I wouldn't be coming out. Meanwhile, I was standing by the empty roadside under a heavy, gray sky. I was surrounded by a patch of withered grass I had just finished harvesting. I wasn't thinking about them at all. I was too busy staring at my status panel in absolute shock. My physique had jumped from 5 to 6. That one weed had given me a permanent attribute point. It was unbelievable. My hands started to shake. In this world, attributes were everything. Every time a professional leveled up, they only got 5 points to distribute. We lived in a world of monster invasions and spiritual recovery where everything had a bit of essence. But these common weeds weren't supposed to be special. They weren't like the spirit herbs found in dangerous dungeons. The fact that a common foxtail weed could give me a point of life source was staggering. I tried it again on another weed. A flash of light, the plant withered, and another surge of warmth flowed through my limbs. Physique +1. I kept going, moving from one plant to the next. The lusher the plant, the more energy I got. This wasn't just a number on a screen. I could feel my body transforming. My heartbeat became steady and powerful. My breathing grew deep and long. After the 5th collection, a wave of dizziness hit me. I realized my spirit attribute was only 5, which meant I had a maximum of 50 energy points. Each infinite collection cost 10 points. I was tapped out. Normally, a mage would have to meditate for 10 hours to recover or buy incredibly expensive potions. Suddenly, a system prompt popped up. Energy exhausted. Spend money to recover? 1 yuan equals 1 spirit point. I didn't even hesitate. I thought, yes, and 50 yuan vanished from my pocket. Instantly, my energy bar refilled to 50. No waiting, no meditating. Just pay and play. It was a perfect, broken loop. I checked my stats again. My physique was now 9. It had nearly doubled in minutes. I remembered a student at school, a C-class shield warrior known for his defense, who started with a physique of 8. I had already surpassed him. I balled my fists, feeling the new toughness in my skin. Since the weeds were gone, I turned my attention to a patch of mimosa plants nearby. I triggered the skill. This time, instead of warmth, a cool energy rushed into my forehead. My mind cleared instantly. Spirit +1. This was exactly what I needed. Different plants gave different attributes based on their nature. Foxtail weeds were hardy, giving physique. Mimosas were sensitive to the world, giving spirit. I drained my energy again, spent another 100 yuan to refill and expand my capacity, and checked the panel. Strength 5, Agility 5, Spirit 10, Physique 9. A Spirit of 10 was the starting point for the city's top genius, Lin Shuiyao, an S-class lightning mage. I had reached her level just by picking weeds on the side of the road. Thinking of the Lin family sent a cold shiver through me. One day, I'd be paying them a visit. I needed strength and agility next. I walked a bit further and noticed a faint white glow near the roots of some trees. It was a trail of black mountain ants. They were thick, sturdy insects, likely mutated from eating spirit minerals. I knelt down and crushed one, activating the skill. Strength +1. A jolt of power shot from my fingertips to my shoulders, then down to my legs. My muscles twitched with new power. I kept going. One ant, two ants. On the third ant, a golden notification flashed. Critical hit triggered. Deep source plundered. You have gained F-class talent. Strength enhancement. My pupils contracted. I was a life class professional, but I had just gained a combat talent. This meant I was breaking the rules of the world. Wang Defa and Wang Xiang bullied me because they thought I couldn't fight. They thought I was a waste of space who couldn't pass the college entrance exam. I gripped my fist so hard my knuckles popped. My eyes turned sharp. They all thought I was destined to be weak. I was going to show them I could be stronger than anyone. I moved to the fourth ant. Another flash. Critical hit. You have gained F-class talent. Strength enhancement. Two identical talents detected. Commencing synthesis. I gained a level 1 talent. Strength overload. It was a massive boost, increasing my physical attack effectiveness to 200%. I stood there, breathless. In this world, your talent was usually decided the moment you awakened. SSS down to F-class, it dictated your stats, your growth speed, and your ceiling. People called it a life sentence. But I had just broken the system. A typical level 1 warrior started with 7 points of strength. I already had 9. My health and spirit stats were even higher, and I was just getting started. I looked down at the black mountain ants scurrying through the grass. To anyone else, they were just mutated pests. To me, they were walking stat points and talent upgrades. I spotted the largest one in the colony, the queen ant. I crushed her under my thumb and activated Endless Collection. A notification flashed in my mind. I had plundered a Tier 2 skill, Power Gathering Strike. It allowed me to condense my entire body's strength into a single point, dealing 4 times the physical damage. The technique flooded my brain, instantly becoming as natural as breathing. I needed to see what I was capable of. I found a sharp rock the size of a football, half buried in the dirt. I took a deep breath and lowered my stance. Power Gathering Strike. A strange, searing heat erupted from my chest and surged down my right arm. It gathered at my knuckles, compressing like a tightly wound spring. I let out a low growl and punched. The impact was deafening. The rock didn't just crack. It shattered into 5 jagged pieces that went flying into the mud. I stared at my fist, then at the debris. I was a collector, a supposedly weak life class professional, and I had just pulverized solid stone. I felt a surge of power I had never known. A wave of bitterness and hope washed over me. My father and my sister were missing, lost in some unknown secret realm. Everyone told me they were dead. Looking at my hands, I realized for the first time that I might actually be strong enough to find them. I turned back to the ants, ready for more, but the system stopped me. I had reached the collection limit for that species. All I got was some useless formic acid. I didn't let it get to me. If the black mountain ants were exhausted, I just had to find something else. The world was full of life. I spent the next hour scouring the roadside. I found 4 new types of plants: purslane, mugwort, plantain, and goosegrass. Each one gave me something new. By the time I was done, I had added 10 points to my spirit and 10 to my constitution. But then I hit a problem. The 600 yuan I had to my name was gone. Every collection cost money for materials, and I was officially broke. I had spent years scraping by, working part-time while studying, and now my path to power was blocked by an empty wallet. I opened my status panel to check my progress. I was level 1. My stats were Strength 10, Agility 5, Spirit 20, and Constitution 20. My total attribute count was 55. Even the most elite geniuses in my class wouldn't have more than 25 points at this level. I was already twice as strong as the best of them. The potential was staggering, but I needed money to keep the momentum going. I looked at the items I had managed to harvest. Aside from the stats, I had 10 bottles of perfect plant essence. They were glowing green, pure, and smelled like fresh forest air. They weren't high-level potions, but their purity was flawless, making them the perfect base for high-end medicine. I knew exactly where to go. I headed into the old district of the city. The streetlights were dim, casting long shadows over the peeling paint of a shop called Old Wu's Herb Processing. The smell of dried roots and bitter herbs hit me immediately. I had worked here for 3 years after my family disappeared. Old Wu was the only reason I hadn't starved to death. I found him crouching on the floor, sorting through a pile of dried leaves. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. He asked how my awakening went, his eyes full of hope. I stayed quiet for a second before telling him the truth. I told him I was an F-class collector. Old Wu froze. I saw the pity in his eyes. He tried to cheer me up, telling me that there was no shame in honest work and that he'd always have a spot for me in the shop. I didn't correct him. Instead, I pulled the 10 bottles of green liquid from my storage and lined them up on his counter. I told him I'd gathered some extracts from the roadside and wanted to see if they were worth anything. He sighed, probably thinking I was bringing him trash out of desperation. He picked up a bottle and twisted the cap. The moment the seal broke, a concentrated aroma of life energy filled the room. Old Wu's eyes went wide. His hands started to shake as he stared at the liquid. He looked at me, his voice trembling. He asked me where on earth I had found something of this quality. How much can I get for these? I asked. Old Wu took a deep breath, his eyes still fixed on the bottles. He told me the quality was incredible, but since they were extracted from common plants, the energy was too weak. They could only be used as additives for low-level potions. I nodded, understanding the limitation. Old Wu thought for a moment, then held up one finger. He offered me 10,000 yuan for the whole lot. My heart skipped a beat. That was way more than I expected. Kid, Old Wu said, patting my shoulder. I'm not going to let you take a loss. He disappeared into the back room and returned a moment later with a thick envelope. He handed it over and told me to count it. I didn't bother. I just shoved the 10,000 yuan into my pocket. We talked for a bit longer, and then I headed out. Behind me, I heard Old Wu muttering to himself. He was amazed that an F-class collector could produce such purity from common weeds. He wondered what would happen if I ever got my hands on actual spirit herbs. On the way home, I checked my phone. The class group chat was exploding with messages about talent attributes. Someone mentioned that Wang Xiang had a strength score of 8 and a total attribute count of 27. The chat went wild, calling him a freak of nature. Then, the conversation shifted to the top genius in Sangzhou City this year, Lin Shuiyao from First High. She had awakened an S-class lightning affinity. I watched the messages scroll by and felt a smirk tugging at my lips. They were so impressed by those numbers. If they knew my total attributes had already hit 55, their jaws would probably hit the floor. But I kept my mouth shut. I needed to hide my strength until I was strong enough to protect myself. Just as I was about to close the app, a notification popped up. All Awakens students were ordered to gather at the school playground at 8 a.m. tomorrow. We were heading to the Mist Plains, a novice trial dungeon. The notice mentioned that lifestyle classes were not recommended to attend. Not recommended didn't mean forbidden. The novice dungeon was full of spirit herbs and beasts. It was dangerous, but the rewards were far better than the weeds and ants I found on the roadside. I had money now, so I stopped at a shop to buy a stack of empty bottles for tomorrow's harvest. Later that night, I sat in my small, cramped house. On the table sat a faded photo of 3 people. A middle-aged man and a young woman, both in combat gear, stood next to a younger, scrawny version of me. That was my father, Lu Yuanshan, and my sister, Lu Qing. I ran my thumb over their faces. Dad, sis, I whispered. I don't believe you're gone. Just wait for me. I put the photo back in the drawer and lay down. I was ready for the Mist Plains. It was a training ground managed by the government to turn new awakeners into real warriors. The next morning, I arrived at school. When Wang Defa saw me joining the trial, he turned red with rage. He realized I wasn't going to give up my bonus points easily. Wang Xiang spotted me too, his eyes dark and full of malice. Buses took us to the outskirts of the city. The plaza in front of the dungeon entrance was packed with students from every high school in the area. Our principal, a balding man in his 50s, stood before us. He explained that the trial would last 3 days. We each received a teleportation bracelet for emergencies. Wang Xiang stood at the front of our line, wearing dark gold armor and carrying a massive greatsword. He looked like a hero, and everyone was staring at him with envy. I looked around and realized I was the only lifestyle class student who had shown up. Wang Xiang walked over to me, looking down his nose. He asked me what a trash class like me was doing there. He offered me one last chance to hand over my bonus points. Before I could answer, his 2 lackeys jumped in. A guy named Li Cheng, a distant relative of the Wang family, started barking that Wang Xiang could crush me with one finger. Then another guy, Zhao Hong, whose family was a supplier for the Wangs, started shouting to the crowd. He told everyone my name and mocked me for being a collector with zero combat ability. The surrounding students started whispering and sneering. They wondered if I was trying to leech experience from a real team. They laughed, saying no one would ever group up with a garbage collector. Even the teachers nearby shook their heads. To them, the gap between me and Wang Xiang was like the gap between a cloud and the mud. Our principal frowned, but he didn't say anything. Wang Xiang was the school's star. I was just a lifestyle worker who couldn't bring the school any glory. I stayed calm. Only the weak barked that loud. If these guys actually tried to touch me, I'd give them a lesson they'd never forget. The schools began entering the dungeon. As I stepped toward the swirling vortex of the entrance, I heard Wang Xiang's cold voice behind me. He told me that there were no teachers inside, and the moment I was alone, he would crush me. I stepped through. I emerged in a foggy forest. The air smelled of damp earth and a hint of blood. As I started to walk away from the crowd, a sudden roar of excitement broke out behind me. Lin Shuiyao. It's the goddess Lin Shuiyao. I turned back. 4 girls had just teleported in. They were all beautiful, but the one in the lead was on another level. She wore a moon-white mage robe that hugged her curves perfectly. She had a tiny waist, long legs, and skin so pale it almost looked translucent. She was the daughter of the war god Lin Shanchuan and the strongest S-class lightning mage in the city. Boys were screaming, begging her to look at them. But Lin Shuiyao didn't react. Her face was like ice, her eyes cold and distant as she frowned at the noise. She looked like someone who didn't belong in this world at all. I watched the scene unfold, shook my head, and walked toward the left. I wanted to get away from the noisy crowd. Lu Hao. A soft voice called out from behind me. I turned around and saw Lin Shuiyao. She had somehow managed to ditch the crowd of admirers that usually followed her everywhere. Her voice was gentle now, a complete contrast to the icy, distant persona she showed everyone else. What is it? Am I not allowed to be here? I asked. Unlike the guys who spent their days worshipping her, my response was cold. Lin Shuiyao paused for a moment. I heard about the situation with Wang Xiang. The Wang family has a lot of influence. You're alone. She hesitated, then continued. If you're willing, I can ask my father to step in. The Wang family wouldn't dare ignore him. I felt a bitter smirk tug at the corner of my mouth. Lin Shanchuan. I let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Forget it. I have nothing to do with your family. Lin Shuiyao's breath hitched. I didn't mean anything by it, she sighed. I just don't want to see you get hurt. I looked at her with total indifference. 2 years ago, we were close friends. Her father and my father, Lu Yuanshan, were brothers in arms who would have died for each other. Our families were like one. But after a specific dungeon exploration mission, everything changed. My father and my brother, Lu Qing, died inside. Lin Shanchuan was the only one who came back alive. I had gone to his house multiple times begging for the truth. He wouldn't say a single word. He gave me no explanation at all. Since then, I had cut all ties with the Lin family. Get hurt, I said coldly. Wang Xiang isn't capable of hurting me. I turned my back on her and walked away. She looked like she wanted to chase after me, but she stopped. She stood there for a long time, eventually shaking her head with a sigh. You're still as stubborn as ever. Shuiyao, I've never seen you speak so kindly to a guy before. A girl with a dagger at her waist and a lithe build walked up. This was Zhou Ji, an assassin. She looked in my direction with disdain. I've checked him out. A lifestyle worker shouldn't even be here. Look at him, all alone. Not a single person wants to team up with him. Don't be like that, Zhou Ji. A girl named Xiao Shui said, biting her lip. She was a priest and looked at my retreating figure with pity. He looks so lonely. The assassin laughed. Pity? Shuiyao tried to help him, and did he appreciate it? People with lifestyle classes should just stay in school. Shuiyao, you and him are from 2 different worlds. It's fine to be kind occasionally, but don't take him seriously. Lin Shuiyao frowned as she listened, but she didn't argue. She knew they were technically right, but she couldn't stop staring at my back. A third girl, Su Wan, hadn't said a word. She was a tall archer with a massive bow and sharp eyes. As an archer, she had a skill called Eagle Eye that allowed her to see things others couldn't. This lifestyle worker is strange, Su Wan whispered to herself. What is it? Lin Shuiyao asked. Su Wan shook her head and looked away. Nothing. But internally, her Her suspicion grew. Asterisk, something is wrong. How is the blood aura on that guy so incredibly strong? Asterisk. That's not how a lifestyle worker should feel. I waited about half an hour until the other teams had disappeared into the thick fog of the forest. Then, I started moving. After 10 minutes, I heard the sounds of a violent struggle ahead. I crept closer and saw 3 large, brownish-gray rabbits fighting a team of 5 students. These rabbits were the size of small dogs. They had powerful legs that let them leap 3 or 4 meters at a time. Their eyes were blood red, and they attacked by biting and ramming their targets. These were redwood rabbits, level 1 monsters. The student team struggled, but they eventually killed all 3. They were panting and covered in sweat. Damn, these things are fast, one of them cursed. We could barely hit them. Luckily their attack power is low, or we'd be dead. They patched up their wounds and left, not even bothering to look at the rabbit carcasses. To them, the bodies were trash. To me, they were a gold mine. I stepped out from behind a tree and walked to the bloody remains. I placed my hand on a rabbit and whispered, "Endless extraction." A white light flashed. Success. You have obtained redwood rabbit bone and skin, 1 set. You have extracted a small amount of agility essence. Agility +2. A cool, light energy surged through my body. My muscles felt fluid and weightless. Agility was my weakest stat, and I had finally found a way to fix it. I didn't rush to kill monsters myself. There were thousands of students ahead of me doing the work, and I didn't want to reveal my strength yet. I extracted the other 2 rabbits. My agility jumped from 5 to 11, more than doubling in seconds. I crouched and leaped forward. I felt light as a feather. My movements were no longer those of a normal person. I followed the sounds of fighting deeper into the forest. 50 meters away, I found another battlefield with 3 more rabbit corpses. Endless extraction. You have obtained F-grade agility talent, flexibility. I had just broken the limits of my class again. I was now an agility-based combatant. These classes were known for being the elite. High crit rates, high dodge, and lightning speed. By the time I hit my 6th rabbit, the system told me I had reached the extraction limit for that species, though I still got a high-quality pelt to sell later. I moved into the level 2 zone. This area was home to green wolves. They were long-limbed and moved like gray shadows. They were much harder to kill, and I saw teams taking a long time just to take down one. I moved like a ghost between battlefields. As soon as a team finished a kill and moved on, I appeared. Success. You have obtained green wolf pelt. You have extracted agility essence. Agility +2. After 5 wolves, I didn't get a new talent, but I got something even better. You have obtained Tier 1 skill, haste. Increases movement speed by 300% for 5 seconds. I activated the skill immediately. My legs felt weightless. I shot forward like an arrow released from a bow. The wind screamed in my ears. By the time the 5 seconds were up, I was 300 meters away. This speed was going to be a massive advantage. Finally, I reached the level 3 zone. The difficulty spiked again. High above, I saw golden bronze falcons. They had 2-meter wingspans and sharp golden feathers around their eyes. They were fast, and because they could fly, their attacks were almost impossible to predict. The level 3 zone was a bloodbath for most people. While other teams were groaning in pain and struggling to stay alive against the golden bronze falcons, I was having the easiest time of my life. I just waited. Whenever a strong team took down one of those metallic birds and moved on, I stepped in. I pressed my hand against a fresh carcass, and a warm golden orb appeared in my palm. Success. You have obtained golden bronze falcon eye. You have extracted agility essence. Agility +2. I hit 5 different battlefields to finish my set. Along with the eyes and the stat boosts, the system chimed again. I had unlocked a new skill, vision enhancement. It was a Tier 1 ability that sharpened my eyes to a terrifying degree. Suddenly, the world snapped into focus. I could see the tiny veins on leaves, the holes left by insects on tree trunks, and even a beetle crawling in the grass 50 meters away. Even the thick mist couldn't stop my sight anymore. This was a game changer. My agility had reached 35 points now. While everyone else was sweating and bleeding to level up, I didn't even have to draw my blade. I just followed behind and cleaned up the scraps. It only cost me 10 energy points per extraction. This was the life. I planned to collect as many eyes as possible. They would fetch a high price back in the city. I eventually stumbled upon a massive battlefield with 8 or 9 falcon carcasses scattered around. It looked like a multi-team brawl had happened here. The ground was stained with both beast and human blood, and I even found a few pieces of broken gear. It was a gold mine. But just as I finished harvesting, I heard heavy footsteps behind me. I turned to see Wang Xiang and his crew. Wang Xiang looked at me with pure hatred. His lackey, Zhao Hong, mocked me for being stupid enough to wander into a high-level zone alone. Li Cheng, another one of his guys, had a cruel smile on his face. He whispered about how easy it would be to finish me off right here while I was isolated. He pulled out a bow, waiting for the order to fire. Wang Xiang was about to open his mouth when more footsteps echoed through the trees. It was Lin Shuiyao. She had her usual team, but they had added a tall guy carrying a massive shield. She saw the standoff and immediately stepped between me and Wang Xiang's bow. Lightning crackled in her hands. She told Wang Xiang that if he touched a hair on my head, he'd regret it. Wang Xiang's face stiffened. He hated me, but he wasn't stupid enough to pick a fight with the daughter of the war god, Lin Shanchuan. He growled, ordered his men to leave, and disappeared into the fog. I felt a flicker of disappointment. I actually wanted him to try something so I could test my new strength on him. Once they were gone, Shuiyao turned to me. She told me it was too dangerous to be alone and invited me to follow her team for safety. The new guy, Li Yang, immediately protested. I knew who he was, the son of the Zhangzhou city lord. He was a total elitist who was clearly obsessed with Shuiyao. He mocked me, asking if a lowly gatherer really thought he belonged with a high-level team. Shuiyao didn't take his crap. She told him he could leave the team if he didn't like it. He shut up, but the look he gave me was poisonous. Su Wan, the archer, was the only one who stayed quiet. She watched me with narrowed eyes. She had seen me at the entrance, and she could tell something was wrong. My aura was significantly stronger than it had been hours ago. It shouldn't have been possible for a gatherer to grow this fast without fighting. She kept her suspicions to herself, but I could feel her gaze lingering on me. I didn't care what they thought. I looked at Shuiyao and her teammates and gave them a flat no. I told them I had no interest in following them and walked away without looking back. Li Yang looked relieved, but Shuiyao just stood there, her fists clenched under her robes. She eventually turned back to her team and told them to move toward the level 4 zone to hunt firesack moths. As they walked, Li Yang tried to pry into our history, but Shuiyao shut him down instantly. She was clearly thinking about the past, about how our families used to be close until that one mission where my father and brother died, and her father came back alive. She knew I blamed her father for leaving them behind. Suddenly, a red glow pierced the mist. A firesack moth appeared. Before anyone could react, a fireball slammed into Li Yang's shield. The impact sent him staggering back, coughing up blood. He shouted that he couldn't take more than 3 hits like that. Shuiyao realized the moth's range was 50 meters, too far for her lightning to reach. She started barking orders, telling Su Wan to provide cover fire while Zhou Ji tried to close the gap. The fight was going south, and they were in way over their heads. The priest behind them scrambled to cast a healing spell, her hands glowing as she struggled to keep the team alive. After a brutal struggle, Zhou Ji finally found an opening. The assassin closed the gap and cut down the level 4 beast. Everyone stood there, panting heavily, staring at the massive moth carcass on the ground. These things were long-range nightmares. Their fireballs hit like trucks. Li Yang's face was deathly pale. He muttered that if the assassin hadn't gotten close when he did, he would have been finished. Lin Shuiyao looked grim. She told Li Yang that as their shield, he couldn't retreat. If he backed off, the people behind him would be slaughtered. The shield-bearer nodded, but his heart wasn't in it. He secretly wished I was there. He thought it would be better to have me standing in front of him, soaking up the damage like a human shield. Meanwhile, I had already entered the level 4 zone. I could hear sporadic sounds of fighting in the distance. They were moving too slowly. Waiting for them to leave scraps behind wasn't going to work anymore. I shook my head. I had to do this myself. Luckily, my previous harvest had pushed me to a new level. My agility had skyrocketed, and I finally had the stats to fight independently. I peered through the thick mist. 100 meters away, perched on a withered tree, was a strange, oversized moth. I smiled and walked straight toward it. I pulled up my status panel. Name, Lu Hao. Level, 10/1000. Strength, 11. Passive, Power Strike. Agility, 35. Rank F, Haste. Spirit, 20. Constitution, 20. Talent, Endless Extraction. I wasn't a lifestyle worker anymore. I was becoming a perfect all-around combatant. As soon as I stepped within 50 meters, the fire sac moth jerked alert. It reared up, its abdominal sac glowing bright orange. It opened its mouth and spat a fist-sized fireball at me. It moved fast, trailing orange flames. But with my enhanced vision, the trajectory was clear. I tilted my body just an inch. The fireball whistled past my shoulder and slammed into a tree behind me. The explosion carved a scorched crater into the trunk, sending wood chips flying. I blinked. The power was even more terrifying than I expected. I didn't give it time to prep a second shot. I triggered haste. The ground beneath my feet cracked as I surged forward. With 35 agility and a 200% speed boost, I tore through the mist like a low-flying arrow. The moth's compound eyes flickered in panic. It never expected a visitor to move this fast. It beat its wings frantically, trying to take flight, but it needed a second to build lift. That second was its death warrant. I wound up my right fist, feeling the hot current of energy rushing from my chest to my knuckles. Power Strike. 4 times the strength. I buried my fist into its unprotected belly. The sac ruptured. Fluorescent fluid sprayed everywhere as the moth was driven deep into the tree trunk. Its wings gave 2 final twitches and went still. A faint glow rose from the corpse and merged into my body. I had successfully killed a level 4 fire sac moth. I gained 40 experience points. A warm sensation washed over me. My level bar now read 40/1000. I pulled my fist back slowly. A one-hit kill. These glass cannons were easy if you could get close. I knelt down and pressed my hand against the carcass. Endless Extraction. A flash of light followed. I obtained 1 fire sac and 2 points of spirit. Then, a new notification popped up. I had gained a rank F elemental talent, Fire Element Perception. My pupils shrank. With this, I could learn fire spells. I took a deep breath, suppressing my excitement. The ceiling for this extraction system was way higher than I thought. I scanned the surroundings. Through the layers of mist, I spotted 2 more orange glows on a single tree. Taking on 2 at once was riskier, but I didn't hesitate. I crept toward their flank. Once I hit the 50-meter mark, they both sensed me. It was too late. I blurred forward. 2 fireballs grazed my back as I dodged. I smashed my fist into the moth on the left, shattering it instantly. Before the momentum stopped, I kicked off a branch, using the recoil to launch myself at the second one. Another punch. Another kill. The entire exchange happened in the blink of an eye. I reached out to extract from both. The first gave me another fire sac and 2 spirit points, but the second one made the white light explode in my vision. 2 spirit points and a new skill, Fireball. It was a rank 1 spell with a base damage of 50 plus my spirit modifier. It cost 10 energy and had a 2-second cooldown. My heart hammered. Was it as strong as the ones the moths threw? I held out my left hand. Tiny red sparks began to gather in my palm, drawn from the air like they were answering a call. They swirled and condensed into a fist-sized ball of rolling flames, radiating intense heat. I flicked my wrist. The fireball roared out and hit a tree 10 meters away. The trunk exploded. I nodded in satisfaction. My version was much stronger than the moth's because of my high spirit stat. Even better, that 2-second cooldown was basically nothing. Other mages would be terrified to spam this. 10 energy per shot meant they'd be empty after 10 fireballs. But I was different. If I ran out of energy, I could just buy more. $1 per energy point. I had over $9,000 on me. That meant 900 fireballs. I could turn a level 4 zone into a wasteland. I wasn't just a warrior anymore. I was a mobile artillery unit with infinite mana. I started walking again and found another moth. This time, I didn't rush in. I raised my hand, summoned a fireball, and launched it. The moth was vaporized before it even saw me. It was almost too easy. I walked over to the remains and activated my extraction one more time. The fifth fire sack goose I harvested gave me something unexpected, a grade F talent called Fire Element Perception. I didn't hesitate. I hit the synthesize button immediately. A golden light flashed, and the notification popped up. I had obtained a grade 1 talent, Fire Element Affinity. It boosted my fire skill damage by 1% and increased my mana gathering speed. It didn't sound like much, but combined with my spirit stat hitting 30 points, my fireballs were becoming terrifying. I felt the heat radiating from my skin. I was a walking furnace. As I kept walking through the woods, I spotted another goose. I raised my hand, then lowered it. A fireball cost 10 energy points, and in this world, 1 energy point was $1. I was literally throwing money away with every shot. I needed to save my cash for extractions. Unless I was in real trouble, I decided to stick to my fists. My heavy strike was still reliable, and with every fight, my movements were getting smoother. I was learning how to kill efficiently. After taking down about 20 more geese, a pillar of white light washed over me. I had reached level 2. I gained 5 attribute points, but I didn't use them yet. I didn't need to. What really excited me was my storage space. It doubled from 10 slots to 20. In this world, level was everything. It dictated what skills you could learn and what gear you could wear. I pushed deeper. For the next 30 minutes, I cleared a path through the forest, dropping another 50 geese. Another light flashed. Level 3. My storage expanded again, and I had 5 more points sitting in reserve. Suddenly, I froze. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. A massive tree sat ahead of me, its trunk thick enough for 3 men to hug. Perched on a branch was a monster 3 times the size of the others. Its wings were dark orange, covered in pulsating red veins that looked like squirming blood vessels. It was an elite firesack goose, and it wasn't alone. A dozen regular geese surrounded it like a royal guard. I had stumbled right into their nest. I held my breath and tried to step back, but the elite's secondary eyes snapped toward me. It screeched. In an instant, 12 fireballs began forming in the beaks of the guards. Fine. If I couldn't hide, I'd fight. I bolted to the side just as the first wave hit. The ground where I'd been standing erupted, leaving a crater half a meter deep. Dirt and scorched grass sprayed the air. I closed the distance, narrowing the gap to 30 meters. Then, the elite moved. It spat a fireball twice the size of the others. It moved like a cannonball, twice as fast as the guards' projectiles. I dove, rolling through the dirt. A massive explosion rocked the forest behind me. Shrapnel and sparks rained down, burning small holes in my clothes. This wasn't a normal spell. It was a bomb. I couldn't stay on the defensive. I triggered haste and lunged forward like a bullet. My left hand flared. I fired a fireball point blank into one guard, vaporizing it instantly. Before the others could react, I was already beside a second one. I swung my fist, channeling every ounce of strength into a heavy strike. The goose exploded under the impact. The elite screamed in rage. It realized I wasn't just prey. It shrieked a command, and the remaining guards unleashed a hail of fire from every direction. Any other rookie would have been charred to a crisp, but my agility was too high. I blurred through the trees, dancing between the flames. I started spamming fireballs. My energy tank hit 0, but I didn't care. I pumped money into my system, refilling my mana instantly. I was the only person in this forest who could afford to fight like this. In less than a minute, the guards were nothing but smoking corpses. The elite kept firing its heavy shells, but I was too fast. I closed in, launched a fireball to stun it, and followed up with a crushing right hook. The elite let out a final, pathetic chirp and crashed to the ground. I stood over the body, breathing hard. I had reached the extraction limit for normal geese, but this was an elite. I pressed my hand against its cooling feathers. The extraction was a success. I gained 3 spirit points and a new skill, Burst Fireball. It was a rank 2 spell. It dealt massive damage in a 10-meter radius. A notification informed me that it had automatically replaced my basic fireball skill. I grinned. Even a genius like Lin Shueyao wouldn't be able to learn a rank 2 skill until she hit level 10. I was level 3, and I already had one of the most powerful area of effect spells in the game. I spent the next hour testing it out. The efficiency was insane. By the time I reached the edge of the forest, I had killed another 50 geese. I was halfway to level 4. My power was growing so fast it felt like a dream. Other student teams were finally starting to trickle into the area. Most were level 1 or 2. The very best were maybe level 3. I had given them a head start of several hours, and I had already caught up to the elites. As the sun began to set, a thick, heavy mist started rolling across the plains. The real danger was just beginning. The atmosphere of the secret realm shifted as evening approached. The thick mist acted like a curtain, swallowing the last of the daylight. I stepped out of the woods and headed toward the level 5 monster zone. The air grew heavy, and the fog became so dense I could barely see my own hands. I had only walked about 200 meters when I suddenly stopped. My enhanced vision caught an unusual shimmer cutting through the gray haze. I moved forward toward the base of a withered tree. There, a silver-white plant stood about half a person tall. Its needle-like leaves glowed with a soft, rhythmic light. My heart skipped a beat. A spirit herb. These weren't just common weeds. They were rare plants grown from pure spiritual energy, and they were one of my main goals for this trip. I hadn't seen any in the lower-level zones, likely because the faster student teams had already picked them clean. If I wanted the good stuff, I had to stay ahead of the pack. I knelt down and examined it closely. It was a silver needlegrass. During my time working for Old Wu, I had learned how to identify these precious materials. I reached out and pressed my palm against the glowing leaves. I activated endless extraction. A faint light flickered. The extraction was a success. I obtained 1 portion of silver needle spirit liquid and gained 3 points of perfect spirit. A cool, refreshing wave of energy surged straight into my forehead, clearing my mind instantly. In my palm, a small orb of emerald green liquid shimmered. It was pure and transparent, smelling 10 times more potent than any ordinary plant. This was perfect spirit liquid. I took a deep breath, a smirk tugging at my lips. People said gatherers were useless, but they had no idea. The pelts and bones I'd collected from monsters were fine for low-level gear, but they couldn't compare to this. In terms of value and utility, medicinal potions were king. I carefully tucked the liquid into my storage and kept moving. It wasn't long before I heard a low growl. A grayish-black beast the size of a medium dog lunged out from the bushes, its nose twitching. It was a level 5 monster, a spirit hound. It had caught my scent, and its eyes burned with hunger as it bared its teeth and pounced. My gaze turned cold. I didn't retreat. I charged. I activated my power strike, channeling 4 times my strength into a single punch. My fist slammed into the hound's skull. I heard the sickening crunch of bone. The beast let out a pathetic yelp and flew backward like a rag doll. I was on it before it even hit the ground. I followed up with a heavy downward strike. My high agility and strength made me feel less like a human and more like a humanoid monster. The hound twitched twice and went still. I gained 50 experience points. I knelt down and extracted the carcass. I gained the hound's scent gland and 2 points of strength. I continued through the mist, hunting and harvesting as I went. A short while later, I spotted a cluster of dark red fungi glowing in the dirt. Fluorescent mushrooms. Another successful extraction gave me more spirit liquid and 3 points of vitality. Miles behind me, at the edge of the level 5 zone, other student teams were struggling just to survive against a single spirit hound. They were frantic and disorganized. Meanwhile, I had been sweeping the area for an hour. I had already collected 5 spirit herbs and boosted my stats significantly. Beyond the spirit liquid and the extra points to my spirit and vitality, I hit level 4 and got a massive surprise. From one of the hounds, I extracted a rank 1 passive skill, Enhanced Smell. This skill was a game changer. It allowed me to distinguish the faintest scents in the air. In this thick fog, my nose was now more reliable than my eyes. I could smell a monster or a spirit herb long before I saw it. I grinned. This meant I would always find the treasures before anyone else. By now, it was around 8 p.m. The fog had reduced visibility to less than 20 meters. According to the school's instructions, students should have retreated to camp by now. In fact, I could smell the wood smoke from their distant bonfires where they were huddling together for safety. But I wasn't done. This secret realm only opened once a year. Every herb someone else picked was a loss for me. I wanted them all. Another hour passed. I lost track of how many hounds I killed, but a flash of light signaled I had reached level 5. That was when I realized I was lost. The visibility was down to 10 meters, and I was relying entirely on my nose. Just as I considered turning back, my nostrils flared. A scent hit me, faint, but incredibly concentrated. It was the smell of spirit herbs, but it was overwhelming. I was stunned. Was there a king tier herb nearby? My eyes were useless now, so I followed the scent. After 10 minutes, I reached a small valley that ended in a sheer cliff face. The trail seemed to go cold. The smell was everywhere, but there was no path forward. I looked around the ordinary valley, thinking I should leave. I was likely in the level 7 monster zone now, and being here in total darkness was suicide for most people. But then, my eyes caught something behind a thick curtain of vines on the left cliff wall. I pushed the vines aside, revealing a hole just large enough for a person to crawl through. It was pitch black inside. My pupils constricted. A hidden cave. When I leaned in, a wave of thick spiritual energy rolled out and hit me in the face. My heart hammered against my ribs. A place like this had to be hiding something extraordinary. Without my enhanced vision and smell, I never would have found it. I hesitated for a second, then crawled inside. With my current stats, I could handle a few monsters, and I couldn't walk away from energy this pure. Inside, the fog was gone. Because of my enhanced vision, I could actually see better in the dark cave than I could outside. The tunnel sloped downward. I kept my muscles tense, listening to the echo of my own footsteps. After walking for 10 minutes, maybe 300 meters deep into the earth, the tunnel suddenly opened up. I froze. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I had emerged into a massive cavern that could easily hold 1,000 people. But that wasn't what shocked me. The walls of the cavern were covered in thousands of tiny, glowing specks. It looked like I was standing in the middle of a star-filled galaxy. As someone who had been hunting spirit herbs all day, I knew exactly what those glowing spots were. Are these all spirit herbs? I whispered, my voice trembling. If they were, there weren't just dozens. There were hundreds. Maybe even 1,000. Out in the forest, it had taken me 2 hours just to find 5. I stepped closer to the wall, my eyes wide, and looked at the glowing moss covering the stone. Each plant was made of countless hair-thin filaments, woven together and clinging to the stone walls. They hung from the ceiling like a glowing emerald carpet, radiating a soft, white light. From a distance, it looked like a fallen galaxy. Up close, it was like 1,000 tiny fireflies huddled together. Huntai. I recognized it immediately. I had seen this herb back when I was working for Old Wu. It was the primary ingredient for low-level energy potions. While it was only a rank 1 herb, it was a hot commodity. Energy potions were the lifeblood of adventurers. They were always in high demand and short supply. I stood there, completely stunned. These weren't just herbs. They were a fortune. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was a literal windfall. The Misty Plains dungeon only opened for a few days every year for new students before it was closed to recover. This cave must have been hidden for years, maybe decades. No student had ever stumbled upon it. Without my enhanced vision and smell, I would have walked right past it too. Now it all belonged to me. I took a long, deep breath to steady my nerves. I didn't rush in. I carefully scanned every corner of the cavern, making sure it was safe. The silence was absolute. If not for the shimmering starlight of the herbs, the place would have felt like a tomb. I reached out and activated my skill. A faint light flickered at my fingertips. Extraction successful. You obtained Huntai Essence X1. Quality, perfect. Spirit +3. My eyes widened. Spirit points? That meant my bursting fireball would hit even harder. I moved to the next one. After 5 extractions, I had gained 12 points of spirit. Eventually, the stat boost stopped, but the perfect quality essences kept piling up. I harvested over 100 portions in one go before my arms started to ache. And that was just one small section. There were hundreds, maybe 1,000, more plants waiting for me. Each one was a treasure that adventurers would kill for. I opened my status panel to check my progress. The numbers looking back at me were borderline insane. Name, Lu Hao. Level, 5. Strength, 20. Agility, 35. Spirit, 42. Constitution, 26. Unassigned points, 20. I had a list of talents and skills that shouldn't belong to one person. power enhancement, haste, enhanced vision, enhanced smell, and fire element affinity. I exhaled slowly. Monster was the only word for it. With these stats, I could probably take on an adult professional. I was a warrior who could cast high-level spells. If I ran into an enemy now, they wouldn't even know how to react. I did a quick mental calculation. The pelts and materials I got from low-level mobs weren't worth much, but these herbs were a different story. Old Wu paid $100 for a basic herb. These perfect essences had to be worth 5 times that. By the time I cleared this cave, I'd be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. I got back to work. I spent hours in a feverish rhythm, collecting essence after essence until the cave air was thick with the scent of crushed herbs. Meanwhile, back at the surface, the atmosphere was much grimmer. Several camps had been set up on a wide, open clearing divided by schools. Campfires flickered, casting long shadows over the faces of exhausted students. Many were covered in bandages, their clothes torn and stained with blood. I didn't think the monsters would be this hard to kill, one student muttered. He had a nasty claw mark running down his right arm. Tell me about it, his friend replied. My team has to move an inch at a time. If we pull more than 2 mobs, we have to run for our lives. I've used 80% of my energy potions already. I don't know how I'm going to last 2 more days. It was the same story everywhere. Everyone was physically and mentally drained. The mages were in the worst shape. Without potions, they were basically useless. Over at the third high camp, a school official was counting heads. We're missing 21 people, he noted grimly. Everyone knew what that meant. They had either been forced to use their emergency teleporters or they hadn't been fast enough to use them at all. Either way, their trial was over. Those who survived but left early would fall behind in the final exams. Those who didn't, well, their lives had just ended before they truly began. That worker, Lu Hao, is missing too, someone shouted. A wave of mocking laughter went through the camp. Do you even need to ask? He's either monster food or he ran away screaming the second he saw a rabbit. A trash lifestyle worker entering a dungeon? It was always a joke. For the students who were struggling, mocking me was the only thing that made them feel better about their own failures. Wang Xiang sat near the largest fire, a cold, arrogant smirk on his face. He was glad I was gone. If I was dead, there would be no one left to claim my family's martyr bonus points. He had reached level 4 already, making him the undisputed number 1 in the dungeon. Young Master Wang, you're already level 4 on the first day, Zhao Hong said, his voice dripping with flattery. You're definitely going to a top-tier university. You'll be a legend. Wang Xiang soaked it in. He could already see his future as a new war god, leading his family to glory. But his daydream was cut short by a sudden shout. Return valid JSON only. Look, someone's coming back from the deep zone. Everyone turned. A lone figure was walking out of the thick fog, heading straight for the camp. It was me. The silence that followed was deafening. I was coming from the high-level monster territory, walking calmly as if I had just gone for a stroll in a park. He's alive, someone whispered. And he was that deep in the forest alone? Wang Xiang's face turned a dark, ugly shade of purple. My appearance was like a physical slap to his face, shattering his smug satisfaction. He looked like he wanted to jump up and tear me apart right there, but with thousands of eyes on him, he could only sit and seethe. I didn't give them a second glance. I found a quiet, dark corner far from the fires and sat down. I reached into my bag and felt the weight of my haul. 805 units of Ing Hun Tai. Even I could hardly believe it. This was a fortune I hadn't even dared to dream of before entering the secret realm. Once the trial ended, selling these materials would bring in a massive amount of cash. But I had a serious problem. The 10,000 yuan I brought with me was almost gone. Without money, I wouldn't be able to activate my endless extraction skill much longer. On the walk back, I weighed my options. My first thought was to teleport out and end the trial early. But I hated the idea of quitting. I still wanted to harvest spiritual herbs and upgrade my talents. Then, a second idea hit me. I had a mountain of raw materials for basic energy potions. If I gathered some wild plants to use as catalysts, I could make the potions myself. I had done this plenty of times while working for Old Wu. Making a basic energy potion wasn't rocket science. You just needed Ing Hun Tai liquid and a few specific herbs. Normally, you'd need stabilizers and fine salt for long-term storage, but I didn't need these to last. I planned to use them all by tomorrow. Even without professional equipment, a crude version would get the job done. I decided to stay. I spent a few minutes extracting juices from the wild weeds I'd picked on the way back. After eating some hard bread to settle my stomach, I got to work. I poured a portion of Ing Hun Tai into an empty bottle, added the plant catalyst, and gave it a gentle shake. The liquid reacted instantly, turning a clear, translucent light blue. It smelled like fresh grass. I downed the first tube immediately. 5 minutes later, I felt a rush of strength. It restored about 100 points of energy. It worked. I calculated that if I made 100 bottles, I'd have 10,000 energy points. That would be just enough to finish the dungeon. As I started on the second bottle, a voice startled me. "Lu Hao, what are you doing?" It was Zhao Dapeng. We had been seatmates for a semester, but we rarely spoke. I was a loner who spent my nights working, while he was the son of a nouveau riche businessman who spent his nights at clubs and his days sleeping in class. He used to try and act like a big brother to me, offering to take me out to meet girls, but I always turned him down. We lived in different worlds. He didn't understand my struggle, and I had no interest in his shallow lifestyle. In this awakening, he had become a B-rank undead summoner. I didn't look up from my work. "Making basic energy potions," I said flatly. "Holy crap, you're that good." Zhao Dapeng squatted next to me, watching my hands move with practiced precision. His doubt turned into pure shock. "You actually know how to brew medicine." I glanced at him, but stayed silent. He thought this was impressive, but to me, it was just a survival skill I'd picked up while working multiple jobs to stay alive. He saw my past as a tragedy. I saw it as my foundation. After watching me for a while, Zhao Dapeng looked at the bottles with greedy eyes. "Old classmate, can you spare a few for me? I'm out of mana." I didn't realize grinding mobs would be this draining. I waited a few seconds before answering. "Sure, but it'll cost you." Zhao Dapeng slapped his thigh in excitement. "I'll take 10. Money isn't an issue." "How much?" In a regular shop, these went for 600 yuan. Mine were crude and lacked professional refinement. But in a dungeon where supplies were non-existent, they were priceless. I didn't really want to spend my time selling things, so I set a high price to see if he was serious. 1,000 per bottle, I said, my face expressionless. "Done." Without blinking, he pulled a thick stack of cash from his pocket and counted out 10,000 yuan. I was actually a bit surprised by how fast he moved. I handed him the 10 bottles and went back to work. A few minutes later, I realized he was still hovering over me. "Why are you still here?" He rubbed his hands together. "Lu Hao, have you thought about selling these? This is a gold mine." I looked at the money. One bottle restored 100 energy points, but one bottle sold for 1,000 yuan. If I used that money to buy energy through the system, I could get 10 times the return. But I didn't want to stand in the middle of camp shouting like a merchant. I shook my head. Zhao Dapeng grinned. "I get it. You're socially awkward. Tell you what, let me handle the sales. I'll buy them from you for 1,000 each, and whatever extra I make is my commission." "Deal." "Whatever," I muttered. He took 30 more bottles and vanished into the crowd. 10 minutes later, he came sprinting back, looking like he'd won the lottery. "They're gone. All of them. People are losing their minds over these. How many more do you have?" He handed me 30,000 yuan. He wasn't even calling me by name anymore. He was calling me Brother Hao. The merchant blood in him was officially boiling. "I have 50 more, I said, handing them over. "But I have one condition." "Anything, Brother Hao. Name it." I looked over at where Wang Xiang was sitting. "Sell to whoever you want, but don't give a single drop to Wang Xiang or his team." Zhao Dapeng hesitated. To a businessman, an enemy's money is still money. Plus, snubbing Wang Xiang was dangerous. But he looked at the potions, then at me, and nodded firmly. "You got it. Your rules, your medicine." He ran back into the crowd. Word had spread, and he was immediately swarmed. 1,500 for one bottle? "You're robbing us," a short-haired girl shouted, frowning at the price. "Take it or leave it. There's a line behind you." Zhao Dapeng barked with a punchable smirk. He was even greedier than me, tacking on a 500 yuan markup per bottle. He knew he had a monopoly. "I'll take 5, someone yelled. 10 for me. You promised me next." People were waving stacks of cash, pushing and shoving to get to him. The short-haired girl was nearly knocked over in the chaos. Then, I saw Lin Shuiyao and her team approach. The female priest, Xiao Shui, handed over 2 stacks of cash. 20 bottles, Xiao Shui said. Zhao Dapeng handed them over quickly. When he saw Lin Shuiyao standing behind her, his eyes lit up. He threw in an extra bottle for free. A little discount for the goddess, he chirped, desperate to score points with a top-tier talent. Lin Shuiyao nodded to me from behind the crowd, a small gesture of acknowledgement. Suddenly, a loud, arrogant voice cut through the air. Zhao Dapeng, I'm taking everything you have left. It was Li Cheng and Zhao Hong, 2 of Wang Xiang's lackeys. It was obvious who sent them. Zhao Dapeng looked at the cash in Li Cheng's hand and slowly shook his head. Sorry, he said. I'm not selling to you. The crowd went silent. Every eye turned toward Li Cheng, whose face turned a deep, bruised purple. He was livid. Damn it, Zhao Dapeng. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Zhao Dapeng gritted his teeth. He had already chosen a side, and he wasn't backing down now. It means exactly what I said. No sale. Zhao Hong stepped forward, pointing a finger right in Zhao Dapeng's face. You're just the son of some nouveau riche trash. You think you can mess with young Master Wang? Just wait. Once we're out of this dungeon, you're dead meat. Zhao Dapeng let out a cold laugh. You think mentioning his name scares me? You think I grew up yesterday? In the end, Li Cheng and Zhao Hong had to walk back to Wang Xiang empty-handed and fuming. The 3 of them huddled together, whispering. When they finished, Wang Xiang snapped. He kicked their campfire with a heavy boot, sending sparks flying everywhere. The surrounding students scrambled away in fear. Wang Xiang glared at me and Zhao Dapeng like a poisonous snake. The words came out of his mouth like a low growl. That bastard Lu Hao. And that little dog Zhao Dapeng. Who do they think they are? It had to be Lu Hao's idea, Zhao Hong hissed. Zhao Dapeng wouldn't have the guts to cross us otherwise. Wang Xiang nodded slowly, his eyes cold. Li Cheng, tomorrow morning, you watch Lu Hao. The second he leaves the camp, follow him and finish him off. Dump him in a pile of monster carcasses. Keep it clean. I won't let a piece of trash like him ruin my chances at Qingbei Martial Arts University. You got it, young Master Wang, Li Cheng replied, his voice full of spite. For the next hour, I kept busy crafting basic energy potions. Zhao Dapeng was like a whirlwind, running between camps and returning with a face flushed from success. When we finally tallied the numbers, we had sold 200 bottles. Brother Hao, this is just the first day, Zhao Dapeng whispered, his eyes gleaming. Tomorrow, when people are really desperate, I bet we could move 500 or 600. I didn't commit to that. I had just made 200,000 yuan. Zhao Dapeng, acting as the middleman, had cleared a cool 100,000 for himself. He leaned in with a grin. Brother Hao, how about I give you 50,000 of my cut? I waved him off. You earned that with your own mouth. Keep it. Zhao Dapeng didn't argue. His father was a self-made businessman, a shark who started from nothing. It was clear Zhao Dapeng inherited those genes. Even though his combat class was a weak ranger, his business instincts were top tier. I looked at him, half smiling. Dapeng, you risked defending Wang Xiang for a mere 100,000 yuan. That doesn't seem like a smart business move. Don't you think the loss outweighs the gain? Wang Xiang is a bully, Zhao Dapeng spat. Trying to rob people in broad daylight. I've hated his guts for a long time. Is that so? I glanced at him. I didn't buy the justice act for a second. Zhao Dapeng rubbed his hands together and got serious. Fine. Truth is, everyone thinks Wang Xiang is the big shot, but I'm betting on you, Brother Hao. You can forage and craft. I want to stay on your good side. I watched him. He was smiling, but there was a sharp light in his eyes. He didn't know my secret, but his intuition was different from the rest. He sat down next to me and lowered his voice. Brother Hao, Wang Xiang is gunning for you. Be careful. I know, I said simply. I lay back on the grass, closing my eyes. Zhao Dapeng talked for a bit longer, but when I didn't respond, he took the hint and left. Deep night fell. The mist grew thick, wrapping around the camp like a wet shroud. The fire crackled. Most students were already in their sleeping bags, exhausted from the first day of combat. I lay in the corner, planning. I had entered this place with only 10,000 yuan, playing it safe and stingy to save mana. I hadn't even dared to use my fireballs freely. But now, with 200,000 in my pocket, everything changed. Tomorrow, I was going to sweep this entire dungeon. The next morning, as the mist began to thin, teams started checking their gear. I slipped away alone, moving quietly into the fog. Yesterday, my goal was just to scavenge stats and maybe find some herbs for cash. Today, I wanted it all: attributes, talents, herbs, and experience. I needed higher-tier spirit plants, not just the basic stuff. As I disappeared into the trees, Wang Xiang watched me from a distance. I was worried he'd stick with the group. He's asking for death now. He turned to Li Cheng. Make it quick. Get it done and get back. Lin Shuiyao and I both hit level 5 yesterday. I need to be the highest level in this dungeon. Don't worry, Li Cheng said, pulling a heavy bow from his inventory. Killing him is like stepping on an ant. I could have shot him in the camp if I wanted to. I'll let him live for a few more minutes. Li Cheng vanished into the woods after me. I headed straight for the level 6 monster zone. With my agility at a staggering 52 points, I moved through the rugged forest like I was flying, even without using haste. I covered half a mile in no time, reaching the heart of the level 5 zone. Behind me, Li Cheng was struggling. As a ranger, he specialized in vision and speed, but he was baffled. Why was a lifestyle worker charging into a high-level zone? It was a suicide mission. Any monster here could tear a normal person apart. But he didn't care why. He just saw an opportunity. 10 minutes later, he realized something was wrong. I was moving across the mountain terrain like it was flat ground. This isn't right, he muttered, his heart racing. How is he so fast? I wasn't even sprinting, but my base stats were too high. Li Cheng was pushing himself to the limit just to keep me in his sights. The camp was far behind us now. The only sounds were the wind in the trees and the distant roars of monsters. I have to kill him now, Li Cheng hissed, his frustration boiling over. We were entering the territory of level 6 beasts. If a pack surrounded us, he wouldn't be able to save himself, let alone finish the job. I knew Li Cheng wouldn't be able to save himself if things went sideways, but he didn't seem to care. He tightened his grip on his bow, ready to strike. But then, the terrain dipped. I vanished behind a small ridge. Damn it, Li Cheng hissed. He sprinted forward, covering the 200 meters in a matter of minutes. When he reached the top of the ridge and looked down, I was gone. His heart skipped a beat. Where did I go? You're working pretty hard to keep up, I said, my voice calm and steady. Are you trying to ask me to party up for some hunting? I stepped out from behind a thick cluster of bushes. I wasn't running. I wasn't panting. I looked perfectly relaxed. When Li Cheng saw me, he let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Keep running. Why'd you stop? Li Cheng sneered. Lu Hao, you really shouldn't have offended young Master Wang. There are people in this world you just can't afford to mess with. I gave him a faint, bored smile. Oh, so you're here to kill me. That's right, Li Cheng said, his face turning cold. We were classmates, and I didn't really want to kill you. But you brought this on yourself. We were deep in a high-level monster zone, and Li Cheng knew he couldn't waste time. He notched an arrow, pulled the string taut, and released. The bowstring sang. It was his Tier 1 skill, snipe. At 50 paces, his accuracy and power were at their absolute peak. He let his arm drop as soon as the arrow flew. He didn't need to watch. At this range, that arrow would bury itself in my chest. It was over, but then his eyes nearly popped out of his head. The arrow whistled past my shoulder and thudded deep into a tree trunk behind me. He missed. That was his first thought. It had to be, but a cold, sickening feeling started to bloom in his gut. He didn't hesitate. He pulled a second arrow, faster and stronger than the first. He was a ranger, a long-range specialist, and he wasn't going to miss twice. This time, he watched closely. As the arrow streaked toward me, my body blurred. I tilted just an inch to the side. Whoosh. The second arrow hit nothing but air. I hadn't just dodged it. I had made it look easy. You? Li Cheng stammered. He couldn't believe it. A lifestyle worker, a useless trash-tier student, had just dodged 2 of his best shots. It was like an ant suddenly turning into a giant and stepping on him. Aren't you? Aren't you a lifestyle worker? You had 2 shots, I said softly. Now it's my turn. When I started the sentence, I was 50 meters away. By the time I finished the last word, I was standing right in front of him. Too fast. That was the last thing that went through Li Cheng's mind before I struck. I drove a fist upward, slamming it directly into his ribs. The sound of 6 or 7 bones snapping at once echoed through the clearing. The pain was instant and agonizing. Li Cheng flew backward like a discarded sandbag. As he tumbled through the air, terror replaced the pain. As an agility-based class, his senses were sharp. He didn't know how I was doing this, but my speed was like a galloping horse and my strength felt like a falling mountain. He knew I could kill him, and he knew I wanted to. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw my expression. It was cold, indifferent. A massive fireball began to coalesce in my left hand. He knew the next hit would be his end. Li Cheng's heart nearly stopped. The wind whistled in his ears as he flew. The pain was making him dizzy, but the fear of death kept him conscious. I looked at him like he was already a corpse. He didn't hesitate. While still in midair, he smashed his emergency teleportation bracelet. A translucent protective shield shimmered into existence around him. At that exact moment, my dark red, bursting fireball slammed into the barrier. Boom! The explosion was deafening. Flames engulfed the shield, and Li Cheng shut his eyes, feeling the searing heat through the glass. When the smoke cleared, I frowned. The ground where he had been was empty. He had escaped. Fast on the trigger, I muttered. I was strong, but breaking through the school's emergency gear wasn't easy yet. Li Cheng was just Wang Xiang's dog anyway. Killing him didn't matter. The lesson was delivered. I turned and headed deeper into the fog. Back at the plaza outside the dungeon, the teleportation gate flashed violently. A charred, bloody figure stumbled out and collapsed on the pavement. Li Cheng's limbs were twitching. Most of his hair was gone, his skin was covered in severe burns, and his left side was caved in. He knew if he had been a fraction of a second slower, he'd be a charred husk. Teachers and staff rushed over. Someone immediately began casting healing spells. How is he that strong? Li Cheng thought, his mind racing with pure terror. Is he playing the pig to eat the tiger? Those are serious burns, Principal Jian said, shaking his head. Did you run into a fire goose? Li Cheng stayed silent for a moment. It was Lu Hao. He didn't dare mention that Wang Xiang sent him to bully me. He definitely didn't want to admit he almost died trying. The principal froze. What did you say? Lu Hao? The one from your class? Yes. Him. Impossible, the principal scoffed. He's just a lifestyle worker. The other principals gathered around, laughing it off. They figured Li Cheng was just suffering from battle shock. They sent him to a medical tent to rest. Li Cheng lay in his sleeping bag, staring blankly at the tent ceiling. His body trembled. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that fireball exploding in front of his face. The heat, the light, the feeling of suffocating death. He was an A-rank ranger, and he had been nearly one shot. Nobody would believe him. He sat up suddenly, his face turning pale. Wang Xiang and the others had no idea what I was capable of. They still thought I was trash they could kick around. If they ran into me, Li Cheng shuddered. My speed, my strength, that fireball, it wasn't natural. Wang Xiang was strong, but against that kind of overwhelming power, he wouldn't even have a chance to run. Back in the forest, I didn't care about the outside world. The terrain changed into a jagged stone forest. Suddenly, a thin, nearly invisible thread wrapped around my ankle. On the other end was a spider the size of a wash basin, its back marked with a hideous, ghostly face. A ghost face spider. I didn't panic. I flipped my hand, and a bursting fireball formed instantly. These things hated fire. Boom! The fireball erupted on the spider's back. It let out a piercing, high-pitched shriek. My head throbbed for a second, a mental screech. But my spirit stat was high enough that I shook it off almost instantly. The charred spider turned and scrambled toward the depths of the stone forest. Trying to run, I muttered, giving chase. I wasn't about to let it get away. I flicked my wrists, sending 2 more fireballs screaming through the air. They hit with a deafening boom, engulfing the creature in flames. A notification flashed. You killed a ghost face spider. Experience plus 60. I walked over to the smoking remains and activated endless extraction. Spirit attribute plus 2. Not bad at all. With over 200,000 credits sitting in my account, I didn't have to be stingy with my skills anymore. I became a one-man artillery battery. The stone forest lit up with a constant, rhythmic orange glow. Boom, boom, boom. The explosions never stopped. I fired my bursting fireballs one after another like a semi-automatic cannon. Every time a group of 4 spiders showed their faces, they were incinerated before they could even screech. My screen was flooded with notifications of spirit attribute gains. Suddenly, a white light shimmered over the corpse I was harvesting. A critical hit for my extraction. You have obtained an F-rank spirit talent, spirit sensing. I felt a shift in my mind, a subtle awareness of the elements and mental energy flowing around me. This was different from my fire affinity. That was specific to one element, but spirit sensing was universal. It meant the range of spells I could learn just cracked wide open. I stepped through the charred rubble and spotted a dull red glow tucked inside a shaded crevice. It was a thick, blood-colored herb that looked like it was carved from jade. A blood soul grass. I extracted it instantly, receiving a bottle of perfect blood soul essence. I downed it, feeling a warm surge of vitality rush through my limbs. Life attribute +3. This was the advantage of being ahead of the curve. I moved through the stone forest like a ghost, determined to strip the place bare before anyone else arrived. Yesterday, I had been cautious, sticking to the shadows and avoiding fights. Today, I was a force of nature. I cleared the entire zone, harvesting 7 more herbs and boosting my life attribute by another 21 points. Then, the golden light of a level up washed over me. Not once, but 3 times in a row. In just over an hour, I had slaughtered hundreds of spiders and jumped to level 8. My efficiency was bordering on cruel. I didn't stop. I pushed straight into the level 7 zone, the territory of the iron-bone apes. These things were monsters, 2.5 meters tall, built like tanks, and incredibly aggressive. They charged at me, snapping thick trees like toothpicks in their path. But my fireballs were more aggressive than they were. With 52 points in spirit, my spells hit like meteorites. I fired them in rapid succession, draining my 500 points of mana in minutes. Anyone else would have had to stop and rest or choke down a slow-acting potion. I just spent a few hundred credits to instantly refill my mana bar and kept the barrage going. An hour later, the level 7 zone was a graveyard. I had harvested 9 more spiritual herbs, adding 27 points to my life attribute. Another wave of notifications hit. I was now level 11. The experience requirements had jumped tenfold, but I was now getting 6 free attribute points per level instead of 5. I stopped when I saw something glowing on the ground. It looked like a tiny, blood-red human root radiating a faint mist. A grade 2 bloodbone ginseng. This was a top-tier ingredient for high-level healing potions, easily worth as much as a grade 3 herb. I hit the jackpot. I extracted the essence, *life attribute +4*, and headed toward the level 8 zone without looking back. Meanwhile, back in the level 5 zone, a 5-man team was struggling for their lives against 2 spirit hounds. It was chaos. A hound lunged, sinking its teeth into the mage's arm, tearing flesh until the white of the bone showed. Blood sprayed everywhere. They eventually killed the beasts and managed to heal the mage, but they were exhausted. Why are there so few monsters here? The tank grumbled, wiping sweat from his brow. Yeah, another teammate added. We've been walking for ages and only found these 2. We haven't found a single herb today either. Do you think another team is ahead of us? The leader sighed. Don't think about it. We just need to move faster. They weren't the only ones. All across the level 5 zone, teams were scratching their heads, wondering where all the monsters had gone. They didn't realize that I had deemed the level 5 mobs a waste of my time. If I had bothered to clear them, they wouldn't have found anything at all. Further up, in the level 6 stone forest, a high-level team stood frozen in shock. They were staring at a clearing littered with 20 charred, ghost-faced spider carcasses. No way, one of them whispered. Who did this? Who pulls 20 of these things at once? The silence was heavy, broken only by the smell of burnt hair and copper. If they hadn't seen the bodies with their own eyes, they would have called anyone who told them this story a liar. Even the top-ranked students like Lin Shuiyao or Wang Xiang shouldn't be able to pull off a massacre on this scale. They had moved as fast as they could, yet they were walking into a wasteland. In the level 7 zone, Lin Shuiyao's elite team was also slowing down. Their faces were grim. They had seen the trails of destruction through the level 5 and 6 zones, and now they were seeing it here too. They were supposed to be the best, the team destined for the top spot, but someone was outperforming them by a terrifying margin. Could it be Wang Xiang? Liang asked, his voice shaking slightly. I know his berserker class is strong, but this is insane. I don't think so, the female assassin replied, frowning. I checked his level last night. He was level 5, just like us. There's no way he could do this. Maybe there's a dark horse team we didn't notice? The priest suggested. Low individual talent, but incredible synergy? Lin Shueyao shook her head. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at the scorched earth. Impossible. She knew her own strength as an S rank, and she knew her team was top tier. Whoever was ahead of them wasn't just a strong team. They were something else entirely. My current team was stacked. We had a B-rank assassin, an A-rank sharpshooter, a B-rank priest, and a C-rank tank. Even Liang, despite being the weakest link, was decked out in luxury gear that made him a force to be reckoned with. A lineup like ours was supposed to be at the very top of the food chain. Su Wan, our archer, suddenly stopped and looked at the ground. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the aftermath of the battle. It's not Wang Xiang's team, she said firmly. Look at these marks. The primary damage came from fire skills. Wang Xiang doesn't have a fire mage in his group. We all stood there, stunned. I hadn't heard of any powerful fire mages emerging from the awakening ceremony this year. Was it someone from a hidden elite family? Maybe they had top-tier beginner gear that allowed them to sweep through the zone like this? I waved my hand, trying to keep us focused. It doesn't matter who they are, I said, though my heart was racing. The fact is, there's a super powerful team ahead of us. If we slow down, they'll leave us in the dust. We have to move faster. We pushed deeper into the level 7 Ironbone leopard ape territory. As we moved, Suwon lingered behind for a second. She stared at a shriveled, dried-up corpse of a leopard ape. Her brow furrowed. This wasn't the first time she'd seen a monster left in this specific state, completely drained. She thought of Lu Hao, the only collector in the dungeon. But she immediately shook the thought away. It was impossible. Even if Lu Hao was hiding something, there was no way a lifestyle worker could be a top-tier combatant. It was too ridiculous to even say out loud, so she kept her mouth shut. Meanwhile, in another part of the level 7 zone, Wang Xiang's team was in a desperate struggle. 4 ironbone leopard apes had them pinned down. They were covered in blood, their expensive armor battered and cracked. If they hadn't brought a massive supply of high-grade potions and defensive tools, they would have been dead already. Wang Xiang was furious. He had waited for Li Cheng to return, but the man never showed up. Short-handed and desperate to reclaim the top spot for the Changzhou exams, he had pushed his team into the level 7 zone far too early. Usually, teams spend hours grinding level 5 and 6 mobs to gear up and level, but those areas had been completely picked clean. They were forced to fight monsters way above their level just to find anything to kill. After a brutal exchange, they finally took down the 4 apes, but the cost was high. Everyone was wounded. Wang Xiang had a gash on his back so deep you could see the bone, and their priest had nearly been decapitated. It's all Li Cheng's fault, Zhao Hong snarled, bandaging his mangled left arm. Where the hell is he? If we had our full team, we wouldn't be this beat up. That idiot, Wang Xiang hissed, his face contorted with rage. How long does it take to kill a piece of trash like Lu Hao? He was losing his mind. He assumed Lin Shuiyao's team was the one clearing the forest ahead of them. The thought of her being that much stronger than him filled him with a bitter, suffocating despair. If he had known that the trash he sent Li Cheng to kill was the one actually causing this chaos, he probably would have lost his mind completely. I, however, had no idea about the chaos I was leaving in my wake. On paper, I shouldn't have been this strong. I was just one person. But I had a secret weapon, infinite mana. Combined with my Tier 2 bursting fireball, I was a human missile launcher with no reload time. I had already burned through 60 or 70,000 mana points without blinking. I was clearing the map so fast that the teams behind me were being forced into higher level zones just to find a single mob. The danger levels were skyrocketing. Back at the entrance plaza, the school principals were watching in confusion as a record number of students used their emergency teleports to escape the dungeon. Nothing like this had ever happened before. I felt incredible. For the first time, I didn't have to hold back. I was sweeping through the foggy plains, obliterating monsters, and harvesting every rare herb in sight. By noon, I leaned against a massive tree root to catch my breath. I wolfed down some dry bread and water, checking my stats. I was level 12, and only a few thousand experience points away from level 13. After a short rest, I headed back out. But after a few minutes, I froze. The forest had gone silent. No birds, no insects. Just a heavy, suffocating stillness. I sharpened my senses, scanning the dead trees and tangled vines. 10 meters to my left, the edge of a gray rock seemed to twitch. A thin slit opened, and two small, bulbous eyes rolled toward me. It was alive. Suddenly, a black shadow lashed out from the rock with blinding speed. I tilted my head back just in time, feeling the wind of the projectile graze my skin. It was fast, too fast. As I dodged, a massive fireball already glowed in my left hand. I slammed it into the shadow. A high-pitched shriek tore through the air as the creature's camouflage failed. It was a fog shadow chameleon, a level 8 monster. Before it could recover, I launched a second fireball. Then a third. Then a fourth. I didn't stop until the creature was a charred heap of meat. You have slain a fog shadow chameleon. XP plus 80. I walked over and activated my extraction ability. Mental attribute plus 2. These things were lethal if they caught you off guard, but with my enhanced vision, they were just targets. Within the next minute, I spotted two more hiding in the brush. I turned them into ash before they could even move. A white glow erupted from the last corpse. A critical hit. You have extracted the deep source. You have obtained a tier 1 mental skill. I stared at the notification floating in my vision. I had extracted a tier 1 mental skill called pseudo-disguise. It allowed me to form a layer of mental energy over my skin, hiding my stats, and slightly blurring my facial features and body shape. It wasn't a combat skill, but for someone like me, who needed to stay under the radar, it was a godsend. I didn't waste any time. I swept through the level 8 zone, harvesting 8 stalks of spirit grass, and pushing my way to level 13. My experience bar sat at exactly 10,000 points, clicking over into the next stage of my growth. Next up was the level 9 zone, home to the bladed mantis. These things were the speed kings of the novice realm, capable of terrifying bursts of movement. To anyone else, they were a nightmare. To me, I was a walking missile battery. I didn't even have to break my stride. I spent more time picking herbs than I did fighting. The kills were just a side effect of my walk. As night fell, the thick fog returned, cutting visibility down to almost nothing. In this trial, there were 10 levels of monsters. I had already cleared the level 9s. Logic dictated I should retreat to the base camp like I did the night before. That was the safe play, but I was miles ahead of the other students now. Going back would take hours. I decided to stay. I'd just slow my pace, keep grinding, and find a tree to nap in if I got too tired. While I moved through the shadows, another team was struggling nearby. It was Lin Shueiyao and her group. They hadn't gone back either. Shueiyao, the fog is too thick, Xiao Shui, the little priest, whispered. Her voice was trembling. We're only level 7. The monsters ahead are level 9 and 10. We're already lagging behind that top team. Staying out here is suicide. Lin Shueiyao gritted her teeth, her eyes flashing with stubborn pride. That top team didn't go back. If they aren't afraid, why should we be? I knew her well enough to know what she was thinking. As the strongest S-rank lightning mage in Sangzhou this year, she couldn't stand being outperformed by some anonymous stranger. She was pushing her team to the breaking point just to satisfy her ego. They tried to push forward, but they quickly ran into the bladed mantises. In the fog, the mantises had the advantage. Their formation nearly collapsed, and several members took hits. We need to stop, Su Wan, the archer, insisted. If we hit one more pack, we're done. Lin Shueiyao finally nodded. They found a slope, set up some basic alarms, and built a small campfire. The atmosphere was suffocatingly heavy. Even Liang, who usually spent every second sucking up to her, was silent. Everyone, get some rest, Lin Shueiyao said, her voice low. I'll take the first watch. She paced the perimeter of their camp, staring into the gray void. I watched her from the darkness, hidden by the fog and my new disguise skill. I wondered if she was thinking about me. In her mind, I was probably already back in the city, safely tucked away in my bed. She probably thought I was brave for entering the forest as a lifestyle worker, but ultimately useless. She felt guilty, I knew that. She knew her father owed my family a debt that could never be repaid. Suddenly, her head snapped toward my direction. "Who's there?" she barked. I let my silhouette flicker through the mist. I didn't say a word, just gave her a cold, passing glance and turned to walk away. "Wait," she shouted, chasing after me. She followed me for 100 meters through the swirling fog until I finally stopped and turned around. I let the mist thin just enough for her to see my face. She froze. Her eyes went wide, filled with total disbelief. Lu Yuan. She could have imagined anyone out here, the top-ranked genius, a seasoned hunter, a ghost, but not me. A combatless lifestyle worker shouldn't have survived the walk to the level 3 zone, let alone the deep forest. "What are you doing here?" she screamed, her voice a mix of fury and genuine panic. "This is the high-level zone. Are you insane? I don't care how you got this far. You're coming with me to our camp right now." I looked at her, my expression flat. Why shouldn't I be here? I go where I want. "You've lost your mind," she yelled, her voice cracking. "Your father, your brother, they would want you to stay alive, not throw your life away in some fit of stubbornness." Before I could respond, a low, guttural roar shook the very ground beneath our feet. Two glowing red eyes ignited in the fog like twin coals. Lin Shuiyao's face went pale. "Iron Armor Bear. Level 10. Why is it way out here?" She grabbed my arm, her grip tight. "Lu Yuan, run." Now, it was too late. A massive shadow emerged from the mist. It was 4 meters tall, built like a house, with fur like jagged iron plates and a ridge of needle-like hair along its spine. It wasn't just a normal monster. It was an elite iron armor bear. "It's an elite," she whispered, her voice trembling. She pulled out her short staff, her knuckles white. She stepped in front of me, shielding me with her body. "I'll hold it off. Lu Yuan, run. Don't look back." I didn't argue. I didn't say goodbye. I turned around and sprinted into the fog. My speed was incredible, and within seconds, I had vanished completely. Lin Shuiyao stood there, stunned. She had told me to run, but seeing me actually abandon her without a single word of hesitation, I could tell it stung. She sighed, a look of grim resignation settling on her face. Maybe she thought this was her way of paying back the debt her family owed mine. She was only level 7. Against an elite level 10 strength-type monster, she stood no chance. She could have used her teleportation ring to escape instantly, but she didn't. She stayed. She thought if she left, the bear would just track me down and kill me. "Lightning armor," she cried out, waving her staff. A crackling sphere of electricity wrapped around her. The bear roared, its massive paws thundering against the earth as it charged like a falling mountain. "Lightning bolt," she screamed, launching her attack. She really was a talented S-rank. But talent only goes so far when you're outclassed. Lin Shuiyao's reaction was top tier. She gritted her teeth and unleashed a lightning ball the size of a fist, aiming it directly at the iron armor bear. The collision triggered a deafening boom. Blue and white light exploded, illuminating the mist, but the raw force wasn't enough to stop a monster of that caliber. The elite bear didn't even flinch. It swung a massive paw, smashing through her lightning armor like it was thin glass. I heard her groan as she was thrown backward. She hit the ground hard, a trail of blood leaking from the corner of her mouth. She was too weak. She couldn't hold it off. The explosion of her spell had alerted the others at the camp. I heard shouts as several figures rushed toward the scene. Su Wan, the archer, was the fastest. She covered 100 meters in seconds, her face turning pale the moment she saw the elite bear looming over Lin Shuiyao. She didn't hesitate. She loosed an arrow with a sharp whistle. The bear was about to pounce for the kill, but it had to swat the arrow away first. That single arrow bought Lin Shuiyao 2 precious seconds to roll back and gain some distance. "It's an elite beast," Zhouji shouted, his face white as a sheet. Xiao Shui, the priest, started casting a healing spell, her voice trembling. "We can't beat this thing." Liang, the shield warrior, stood at the back. His face was green, and his legs were shaking visibly. The elite iron armor bear turned its attention to the group. It didn't seem bothered by the extra numbers. Instead, it licked its lips, its dark red eyes scanning their throats with a low, hungry growl. It slammed its paws into the earth, creating 2 massive craters, and sending stone fragments flying. Despite its size, it moved like a runaway heavy truck. "Liang, block it. Take the aggro," Lin Shuiyao screamed. She knew they needed a tank to hold the line if the rest of them were going to survive. Liang stumbled forward a few steps. But as that mountain of fur and muscle bore down on him, he saw the bear's eyes. He felt the crushing, killing intent. He broke. "I can't take it," he shrieked. He didn't raise his shield. He rolled to the side, letting the bear pass right by him. His shield flew out of his hands as he scrambled into the fog, running for his life without looking back. "Liang!" Suwon screamed in fury. Without a tank, their formation collapsed instantly. The assassin and the archer tried to stand their ground, but they were glass cannons. The bear swiped at them, and they were sent flying, coughing up blood. Xiao Shui stood frozen in the back, a lamb waiting for the slaughter. After tossing the others aside, the bear turned back toward Lin Shuiyao. She was completely exposed. "It's over," Xiao Shui whispered, closing her eyes. Right then, a brilliant flash of fire cut through the gloom. A fireball with a long flaming tail shrieked through the air. It slammed into the bear with a massive blast, turning the creature into a living torch. Before the flames could even settle, a dark shadow burst from the mist. I was there. I moved like a bolt of lightning, appearing right in front of the elite bear. I pulled back my fist, channeling every ounce of my boosted strength, and smashed it into the bear's ribs. The sound of snapping bone was sickeningly clear. The elite monster let out a pathetic wail as my punch sent its massive body flying. It smashed through 3 thick trees before crashing into the dirt. Silence fell over the forest. Lin Shuiyao, Su Wan, Zhou Ji, and Xiao Shui all stared at me, frozen. I stood there, my expression cold, radiating a pressure that made their hearts skip a beat. My right hand was still clenched, and in my left, a new crimson fireball began to churn with violent energy. One of them whispered my name, but I didn't give them time to think. I hurled the second fireball. It caught the bear right in the skull as it tried to stand. The explosion turned the forest red, the shockwave flattening the surrounding brush. I didn't stop. I launched myself forward like a cannonball, leaving a crater where I had stood. I was a blur. Before the smoke cleared, I was on top of the bear again. I rained down heavy punches, each one sending the beast sliding dozens of meters back. Every time it hit the ground, I was already there to hit it again. The girls could only listen to the rhythmic sound of shattering bones and falling trees. Within moments, the noise stopped. The 4 of them stood there, mouths agape, feeling like they were trapped in a dream. They had seen it all: the speed of a cheetah, the strength of a mountain, and the devastating magic of a high-level mage. It was impossible for one person to have all of it. I walked back out of the fog, dragging the massive, lifeless carcass of the elite bear behind me. I had killed it as easily as one might swat a fly. The only sound was the crackling of their distant campfire. Suwon's bow hand was shaking. Zhou Ji could barely hold his daggers. Xiao Shui covered her mouth to keep from crying out. Lin Shuiyao sat on the ground, staring at me. She didn't recognize me. To her, I was a powerful stranger. Only students were allowed in this zone, but I looked like a god compared to them. I glanced at them briefly to make sure they weren't dying. Seeing they were okay, I turned to leave. "Wait." Lin Shuiyao struggled to her feet. Who are you?" I paused, but I didn't look back. "Are you the one who's been clearing the entire zone?" she asked, her voice trembling. Then, her eyes widened in shock. "Level 13? You're level 13 already." I had forgotten to hide my level after the kill. I didn't say anything. It wasn't a team, she realized aloud. It was just you this whole time. "What's your name?" I stood in the mist for a long moment. I didn't want them knowing who I really was yet. "Yuan," I said, my voice low and cold. Then, I dragged the bear's body back into the darkness, vanishing within seconds. Lin Shuiyao and her team stood frozen in the mist. They didn't speak for a long time. Zhou Ji swallowed hard, his face pale. A single punch and 1 fireball to kill a level 10 elite? It was impossible. He asked what kind of monster that man was. Xiao Shui whispered, wondering if there was actually a student this strong in our year. Level 13. It was unheard of. Lin Shuiyao kept her eyes fixed on the direction I had vanished. If I hadn't appeared, she and her teammates would probably be dead under the claws of that ironclad elite bear. Those beasts were incredibly fast and powerful. Even if they had triggered their teleportation bracelets, they might not have made it out in time. The scene kept replaying in her mind. The force of that punch, the heat of the flame, and the cold silhouette of the man dragging the carcass away. She looked at her male teammates and felt a sting of disappointment. When danger came, they both ran. But that man had stood there like a god. It was no wonder he could clear the entire zone alone. Do you guys think he looked familiar? Suwon, the archer, suddenly asked. The others looked at her in confusion. She hesitated before speaking again. She said he looked a bit like Lu Hao. Zhouji immediately burst out laughing. He asked if she was having hallucinations from the shock. Lu Hao? The lifestyle worker? Xiao Shui shook her head with a sigh, asking Suwon if she even knew what she was saying. Lu Hao didn't even have combat talent. Comparing a lowly gatherer to that powerhouse was like comparing the dirt to the sky. Suwon opened her mouth to argue, but then went quiet. Even she felt the idea was ridiculous. How could a common worker suddenly become a top-tier expert? Yet, that nagging sense of familiarity wouldn't leave her. Actually, I did see Lu Hao here earlier, Lin Shuiyao said suddenly. The three of them snapped their heads toward her. Xiao Shui gasped, asking if she meant that man really was me. Lin Shuiyao shook her head and explained how she had run into me just before the bear attacked. She told them how I had supposedly run away to save my own skin, just like Liang. Zhouji was furious. He called me a coward and a piece of trash, saying it was a waste for Shuiyao to ever care about me. Xiao Shui was just as angry. To them, there was a world of difference between the hero who saved them and the cowardly Lu Hao who abandoned them. They headed back to camp to treat their wounds, unaware that the hero and the coward were the same person. I wasn't far away. Once I was 200 meters out of their sight, I stopped and dropped the massive bear carcass with a heavy thud. I had used my mimicry skill to change my face before helping them because I didn't want my true abilities exposed yet. I had watched them the whole time, waiting until the last second to ensure the bear didn't actually kill them. With my current stats, I was basically a balanced powerhouse equivalent to a level 30 combatant. Handling a level 10 elite was easy work. I rubbed my nose and deactivated the disguise. In Lin Shuiyao's eyes, I was now a pathetic loser who left her to die. I smiled. I didn't care what she thought of me. My only goal was to get stronger. I needed the power to find my father and my brother. They were my only family, and I refused to let their disappearances remain a mystery. I looked down at the ironclad bear. My heart started racing. Through all my extractions, I had learned a pattern. Everything can be extracted, but the quality matters. Common plants and rabbits gave me almost nothing. I needed spiritual beasts. An elite monster like this should have a much richer source of power. I placed my hand on the bear's fur. Endless extraction. A brilliant white light exploded from the carcass. I gained 3 points of strength. Then, a notification popped up. I had triggered a critical hit. I had extracted a deep source. I obtained a level 1 strength talent, Strength Super Evolution. It gave me a 200% boost to my attack power. Since I already had 2 similar talents, the system asked if I wanted to fuse them. I didn't hesitate. I hit synthesize. The light intensified. I had successfully created a land-grade talent, Strength Eruption. My explosive power surged, and my attack effectiveness jumped to 300%. My heart hammered against my ribs. Finally, one of my 4 main stats had broken through to the land-grade level. If I kept accumulating power like this, I could eventually reach SSS grade in everything. I wondered if there was anything even higher than that. I felt a surge of confidence, but I quickly shook my head to clear it. It was a long road ahead. Right now, I was a hexagonal warrior. I had the speed of an assassin, the strength of a warrior, the spells of a mage, and massive health. With my mana recovery, I could fight forever. If I fought Lin Shuiyao now, I could beat her from a distance or close the gap and crush her with one punch. I thought of my father and brother again. My father was a god of war, and my brother was a genius with SS-grade talent. What kind of place could trap people like them? I remembered the grim expressions on their faces before they left. They hadn't told me anything. I took a deep breath to calm my emotions. I had to take this one step at a time. I had basically cleared this zone anyway. I found a quiet cave to rest for the night. Tomorrow would be the final day in the secret realm. When the mist cleared on the 3rd day, The entire Sangzhou secret realm was in chaos. Because I had been violently clearing out all the monsters, the other students were panicking. Many were forced to fight higher-level monsters just to find anything at all, which was incredibly dangerous. Others couldn't find a single thing to kill. None of them had any idea that one lifestyle worker had stolen the entire forest from under their noses. I was the reason for the chaos. The very lifestyle worker they mocked before entering the secret realm had single-handedly slowed down the leveling speed of 10,000 students. This had never happened in the history of the beginner realm. But even if I knew, I wouldn't have cared. I finished clearing the edge of the level 9 zone and pushed straight into the level 10 area. I was a one-man army, moving with terrifying efficiency. Along with the 4 points of strength I got from the elite ironclad bear last night, I extracted 10 more strength points from 5 regular bears. No new talents or skills dropped, but I didn't mind. By noon, I had gathered 13 spiritual herbs from the level 10 zone, including 2 second-tier plants. I hit level 14. My experience bar sat at 10,000 out of 50,000. My progress wasn't slow, there just weren't enough monsters left to kill. I wasn't in a hurry, though. The gains from this trip had already far exceeded my expectations. I sat down to rest and take stock of my haul. I checked my storage space first. I had 647 portions of first-tier spiritual liquid, mostly derived from firefly soul grass. I also had 3 portions of second-tier liquid. Every single drop was perfect quality. This was my survival fund for after the secret realm. Then, I opened my status panel. Name, Lu Hao. Level 14. Strength, 43. Agility, 45. Spirit, 77. Constitution, 98. I had 66 unallocated attribute points. My talents and skills were a long list now. I had Strength Explosion at D grade, Haste at F grade, and Fire Element Affinity. My Bursting Fireball was already at the second tier. I took a sharp breath looking at those numbers. At level 14, I had completely left everyone else behind. Lin Shuiyao was likely only level 8 or 9. Wang Xiang would be even lower. My total attributes were triple those of an S-grade genius like Lin Shuiyao. I was the first person here to possess a second-tier skill. Compared to my classmates, I was an eagle soaring in the sky while they were just chicks on the ground. But I didn't let it go to my head. I was strong for my age, but out in the real world, high-level combat professionals would still crush me. I wasn't special yet. Unlike my classmates who could grow up at a steady pace, I had a secret to keep and a family to find. I knew my path would lead me to terrifying opponents who weren't my peers. I had to stay low-key. I looked at my 66 free points. My main damage came from strength and spirit. I put 20 points into strength and the remaining 46 into spirit. My new stats were strength 63, agility 45, spirit 123, constitution 98, 123 spirit. If the other students saw that number, they'd probably drop to their knees in shock. My bursting fireball was now at least 50% stronger. Elsewhere, Lin Shuiyao's team was waiting for the final teleportation. Do you think he reached level 14 after this morning? Xiao Shui, the priest, suddenly asked. She didn't say his name, but they all knew who she meant. He said his name was Yan, but that has to be fake, the assassin, Zhou Ji muttered. I just want to know who he really is and how he got so powerful. We'll find out once we're outside, Lin Shuiyao said softly. A person at his level is unique. I want to thank him properly, Xiao Shui added. Maybe invite him to dinner? Dinner? You just want to marry him for saving your life, the others teased. They were excited. Every girl admired the strong, especially a mysterious hero who had saved them from certain death. Outside the secret realm, the atmosphere was different. The Wang family had arrived. With them were several men in uniform with cold, indifferent eyes. Everyone recognized those uniforms. They were from the Bureau of Investigation, the official force that maintained order in society. Nobody wanted to deal with them. The beginner realm finally ended. The vortex portal on the plaza flashed with light as students were spat back out. I felt a massive pressure squeeze my body, followed by a wave of dizziness. A second later, I was standing in the crowded plaza. In the northwest corner, Wang Xiang stood with his team, his eyes fixed on the crowd. He had reached level 8. To a normal student, that was an incredible speed, but he knew he had struggled. Since the day of awakening, he had viewed Lin Shueyao as the target he had to surpass to get into the top university. His A-grade talent was already a step behind her S-grade. His plan was to beat her in level and then steal my 40-point bonus to secure his spot as the top student in Sangzhou. Suddenly, the crowd erupted. Lin Shueyao and her team had appeared. Wang Xiang stared at her. Level 9. His face turned pale, and his lip twitched. Wow, Goddess Lin. You hit level 9. The #1 student this year. So strong. The cheers felt like slaps to Wang Xiang's face. His talent was worse, his level was lower, and he still hadn't secured the bonus points. His dreams were slipping away. It's all Lu Hao's fault, Wang Xiang hissed, his eyes turning bloodshot. If I hadn't refused to give up my points, his brother wouldn't have gone missing trying to deal with me, and he wouldn't be stuck at level 8. His hatred for me had never been deeper. Lin Shueyao and her team were looking around frantically. They were searching for Yen. They wanted to know his school, his class, his real name. I moved through the crowd, frowning at the noise. I just wanted to get to the edge of the plaza and disappear. I hadn't gone more than a few steps when a voice shouted from the side. Hao Ji, it's really you. I finally found you. I turned my head to see Zhao Dapeng running toward me. He looked relieved, like he'd just seen a ghost come back to life. Hao Ji, where did you go last night? He asked, breathless. I looked all over the camp for you. I thought something terrible had happened. I wandered too far from the camp, I said flatly. I just didn't make it back in time. Come on, Hao Ji, Zhao Dapeng started, shaking his head. A lifestyle worker wandering around outside the camp at night? That's just too wreck. Suddenly, his voice cut off. His eyes went wide, nearly popping out of his skull. He let out a strangled yelp. Hao Ji, you're level 14. In this world, unless a professional uses a specific item or skill to hide their status, their basic information is public. All it takes is a moment of mental focus to see it. Zhao Dapeng's shout was like a thunderclap in the middle of the crowded plaza. In an instant, the dozen or so students nearby whipped their heads toward me. Level 14. The air turned cold. It was as if someone had grabbed everyone by the throat. They stared at me with bulging eyes, and then the silence shattered into a roar of disbelief. Holy crap, he really is level 14. How is that even possible? My God, how many monsters did he have to kill? This is insane. How did he level up that fast? The shock spread like a stone dropped into a still lake. The 100 or so people on the outer edge of the circle started pushing inward, desperate to see what the commotion was about. I frowned. I didn't want my abnormal level exposed to thousands of people. I definitely didn't want the authorities or anyone with a hidden agenda digging into my secrets. It wasn't time to go public yet. I glanced at the people closest to me and reached out, tapping a mage standing nearby. As he looked at me with confusion, I activated my ability. My basic information flickered and changed. Level 6, Class, Mage. Talent, Level 1 Fire Element Affinity. I had mimicked his information perfectly. I didn't even need mental camouflage. I just became him on paper. By then, 50 or 60 people had swarmed over. What were you guys yelling about? Who's level 14? One guy asked as he pushed through. No way, another added. The highest level reached in this dungeon in the last 10 years was level 10. Do you even know what you're saying? The newcomers looked at me, then checked my info. They rolled their eyes immediately. Seriously? He's a level 6 fire mage. Level 14? You guys have been grinding monsters so long you've lost your minds. Yeah, stop making a scene. You guys are idiots. The original group of students turned red with embarrassment. They checked my info again, rubbing their eyes. That's not right. I saw level 14 just a second ago. I saw it too. It was definitely 14. The two groups started arguing, and the noise grew. Hundreds of people were now looking our way, whispering and pointing. Then, a few more voices joined the fray. Wait, Lu Hao? Aren't you a lifestyle worker? How did you become a fire mage? What? You're saying he used to be lifestyle class? Yeah, he's in our class. I know him. This news was even more explosive than the level 14 rumor. A lifestyle worker turning into a combat class mage? That was unheard of. Thousands of eyes locked onto me. The testimony from the students of school number 3 was too consistent to be a lie. I kept my head down. I had a reason for choosing to mimic a mage instead of a lifestyle worker. I knew I'd be fighting in the future, and my strength would eventually leak out. It was better to reveal a partial truth now to hide the bigger lie later. Using a bit of the truth is the best way to mask the real secret. But I hadn't expected this much of a reaction. The weight of 1,000 stares made my skin crawl. I tried to push through the crowd to leave, but the sea of students parted. Principal Jian and several other school principals were walking straight toward me. What's this about level 14? And a lifestyle worker becoming a mage? The principals had actually been looking for me. A day ago, Li Cheng had been sent out of the dungeon with heavy injuries, claiming I had attacked him with fire skills. Principal Jin had checked the records and confirmed that on Awakening Day, I had definitely awakened a gathering-type lifestyle talent. They were all baffled. Lu Hao, Principal Jin said as he approached. Weren't you a lifestyle worker with a gathering talent? I'm hearing rumors you can use fire skills. Is that true? Yes, Principal Jin, I replied calmly. When I awakened 2 days ago, I was indeed a lifestyle worker. I went into the dungeon to practice my gathering skills. But for some reason, while I was inside, I suddenly awakened a fire talent and learned the small fireball skill. I held out my left hand. A small, flickering ball of fire condensed in my palm. Principal Jian froze. The other principals behind him stared, their mouths hanging open. Dual talents, one principal gasped. He's a dual-class awakener. That shout sent a shockwave through the plaza. The area around me went deathly silent, creating a strange void of noise while the distant students were still chatting away. Then, the realization hit everyone at once. Principal Jian's face turned a deep, excited red. My God, it really is dual classes. The crowd erupted. Everyone had heard of dual-class awakeners, but almost no one had seen one. It was a one-in-a-million occurrence. These people were always the darlings of the era. While others had one talent and one class, they had two. 1 + 1 was always much greater than 2. Heaven is smiling on school number 3. Principal Jian shouted, his voice cracking with joy. We've produced a true genius. The other teachers and principals looked at him with pure envy. The students looked at me with a mix of awe and jealousy. Principal Jian rushed forward and grabbed my hands tightly. Good. Very good. But then, a cold voice drifted from behind him. Old Jian, don't get ahead of yourself. Another principal stepped forward, his expression neutral. If he had 2 A-grade combat talents, he'd be equal to an S rank or even an SS rank. But look at his talents. One is a useless lifestyle class, and the other is just a level 1 fire affinity. There's no synergy here at all. The crowd froze. The sheer rarity of a dual talent awakening had stunned everyone into silence. Principal Jian was still standing there, his face stiff. When he had first rushed over, the noise of the plaza and the rush of adrenaline had clouded his mind. He had been so excited about the dual class reveal that he hadn't even bothered to check my detailed stats yet. Triggered by the other principal's warning, he quickly pulled up my information. First class, Gatherer. Second class, level 1 fire affinity. The excitement on his face died instantly. His hand stopped moving. These 2 classes had absolutely nothing to do with each other. There was zero synergy. A dual-class setup like this was basically just a level 1 fire mage with a hobby. At most, I was slightly better than a commoner. Principal Jian realized the truth in a heartbeat. He let go of my hands. His expression shifted from pure joy to awkward embarrassment. The thousands of students watching burst into an uproar. Then, the mocking started. Are you kidding me? Someone shouted, laughing. What kind of dual class is that? He nearly gave me a heart attack. A lifestyle gatherer and a bottom-tier level 1 fire talent? I could take on 2 of him at once. Other people get dual classes to become gods. This guy got a dual class just for the laughs. A few people looked at me with pity. It was like watching someone win the lottery 100 times, only to find out every single ticket was only worth $5. It was a waste. The heavens had granted me a miracle, and I had squandered it on trash. Principal Jian calmed down. Even though he was clearly disappointed, he couldn't act like a complete snob in front of the entire school. He patted my shoulder, his voice forced. Lu Hao, listen. Even if you didn't become some legendary powerhouse, moving from a lifestyle worker to a combat class is still progress. Keep working hard. 100 meters away, Lin Shuiyao and her team watched the scene unfold. Your friend is such a tragedy, Xiao Shui, the priest whispered. He wasted a one-in-a-million opportunity. It's not that bad, Zhou Ji, the assassin added. He's a combatant now. He shouldn't be greedy. He looked at Lin Shueyao. Aren't you going to congratulate him? Lin Shueyao shook her head, her eyes indifferent. I already paid back the debt between the Lin and Lu families back in the forest. She was talking about when she stayed behind to cover my escape. She didn't look at me again. Her eyes scanned the crowd instead, searching for the mysterious expert, Yan. The crowd began to thin out. People were busy discussing their loot or making jokes at my expense. To most, I was just a funny story. But in the distance, Wang Xiang was staring at me with eyes that could spit fire. For him, my level 1 fire talent wasn't a joke. It was a nightmare. He had teamed up with Wang Defa to force me to give up my bonus points for the university entrance exams. His excuse to the principal had been simple. Lu Hao is a lifestyle worker who can't take the exam. He's useless, so I'll take his spot. But now, I had a second class. I was a combatant. And I was level 6. I was fully eligible for the exams. His reason for stealing my points had vanished into thin air. Wang Xiang's face twisted in rage. First, he had fallen behind Lin Shueyao in levels. Now, his ticket to a top-tier university was being torn up. No, it can't be like this, he muttered, his lips turning blue. I can't lose those points. I want him dead. I'll kill him. Beside him, Zhao Hong looked up from his phone, his face lighting up. Communication had been cut off inside the forest, but out here, the signals were strong. Xiang, Li Cheng isn't dead, Zhao Hong shouted. He was heavily injured by Lu Hao and teleported out. He's coming here right now with your third uncle and people from the investigation bureau. Wang Xiang's eyes widened. A cruel smile spread across his face. He burst into a laugh. Heaven is on my side. He sprinted toward me, pointing a finger directly at my face. Lu Hao, you think you can just walk away after attacking someone in the forest? I'm placing you under arrest for investigation. His voice was loud, cutting through the plaza. The departing students immediately swarmed back. What now? Wang Xiang is going after him again. I heard they had a grudge. Looks like it's ending today. Wang Xiang's voice grew colder. You aren't going anywhere. The bureau is on their way. You're going to answer for your crimes. The atmosphere turned heavy. This wasn't just a school squabble anymore. The investigation bureau meant business. Lin Shueyao and her team stopped their search and looked over. That Wang Xiang again, Xiao Shui hissed, frowning. He's obsessed with those bonus points, Su Wan said, shaking her head. First he traps him in the forest, now he calls the cops. But, if Lu Hao didn't actually hurt anyone, why is the bureau coming? Let's go see, Lin Shueyao said. I don't believe Lu Hao would do that. Principal Jian's face paled as he stepped forward. Wang Xiang, we haven't cleared the facts yet. Why involve the bureau? Wang Xiang didn't budge. Attempted murder of a classmate is a felony. The crowd grew thicker. I just shook my head and turned to walk away. I said you aren't leaving. Wang Xiang roared. His level 8 aura exploded, fierce and aggressive. Beside him, Zhao Hong drew his daggers. They blocked my path from both sides. The surrounding students scrambled back. 2 level 8 experts were about to jump a level 6 fire mage. I stopped. I turned my head and looked at them coldly. I didn't want trouble, but I wasn't afraid of it. If they were hell-bent on dying, I didn't mind giving them the Li Cheng treatment, even if it meant showing my hand a little earlier than planned. Stop it, all of you, Principal Jian shouted, trying to regain control. You're classmates. We can talk about this at school. Principal Jian, you don't have a say in this today. A cold voice cut through the air. The crowd parted as 6 people walked toward us. Leading the way was Li Cheng. He was covered in bandages. Even after a day of healing, his skin was a mess of horrific burns. He looked miserable. Walking with him were 3 officers in Investigation Bureau uniforms and 2 men from the Wang family. The students gasped. It's really the Bureau. Lu Hao must have actually done something terrible. Li Cheng and Wang Xiang exchanged a look. Wang Xiang smirked at me. Run, Lu Hao. Go on, run. Who cares about your trash dual awakening now? A middle-aged man from the Wang family stepped up to Xiang. Are you all right, Xiang? Third uncle. I didn't think you'd come personally. Wang Xiang's smile turned sadistic. This waste is dead meat. I looked at the man. Third uncle Wang. He was famous for one thing, being ruthless. Third Uncle Wang was the man who handled all the Wang family's dirty business. Everyone in Sangzhou lived in fear of him. He turned his gaze toward me, his eyes like ice. He asked if I was Liu Hao, then accused me of attacking his nephew in the secret realm for no reason. He called me vicious. He pulled Li Cheng forward, and the bandaged mess of a boy pointed a trembling finger at me. He screamed that I had ambushed him and told them to lock me up. The lead investigator was a fat, middle-aged man named Deputy Director Fong. He looked at me with utter indifference. He told me I was suspected of malicious assault and that I was being taken to the Investigation Bureau for detention and review. Those words sent a shiver through the crowd. Detention meant I was as good as dead. Even if I survived the interrogation, I would miss the big exam, and my future would be erased. Principal Jian was sweating. He stepped forward, asking if there was a mistake. He tried to argue that this would ruin my chances for the exam. Fong didn't care. He snapped back that a criminal had no business taking exams. He told the principal this was no longer a school matter, but an attempted murder case. The principal looked defeated. He made one last attempt, mentioning that I was the child of martyrs and that my father and sister had sacrificed everything for the country. Fong just sneered. He said being a martyr's descendant meant I should follow the law even more strictly. He asked if I thought my status gave me a license to do whatever I wanted. The principal went silent. Wang Xiang was beaming with pride. In his mind, he had already won. He looked at me, his eyes saying that even if I survived the forest, I couldn't survive his family's power. Fong waved his hand and ordered his men to take me away. Two high-level combatants started walking toward me. The other students shook their heads, pitying me. Against the bureau, even a genius was helpless. "Stop," a voice roared. Zhao Dapeng stepped in front of me. He asked them what right they had to arrest me based on one person's word. He pointed at Li Cheng and laughed, calling it a joke. He accused them of teaming up to bully a student. He seemed to know exactly who these people were and what they were really after. The principal looked on, helpless to join in. Fong glared at him. He asked if Zhao Dapeng wanted to be arrested for obstructing justice. Zhao didn't flinch. He told them that by law, a suspect could be released if someone guaranteed their bail. He announced right there that the Zhao family would stand as my guarantee. The crowd erupted. Nobody understood why Zhao Dapeng would risk his family's reputation for me. Fong gritted his teeth. He asked if Zhao's father knew about this. Zhao just shrugged and said he was an adult, and his father listened to him anyway. The bureau and the Wang family looked uneasy. Dealing with the Zhao family was a headache they didn't want. Then, another person moved. Lin Shueyao walked out from the crowd. She looked at me, standing alone in the center of the square, surrounded by enemies. She remembered how we used to be. She remembered the days before my father and sister died, when we were inseparable. She remembered the guilt her own father, Lin Shanchuan, carried from that day. Tears welled up in her eyes. She ignored her teammates who were calling me a coward for running away in the forest. She stepped up and announced that the Lin family would also guarantee my bail. The students were stunned. The daughter of the war god was backing me. Her friend Zhou Ji tried to pull her back, calling me a coward who abandoned his team. Lin Shueyao just shook her head. She said I was her best friend and that her family owed me a debt they could never repay. With both the Zhao and Lin families involved, the situation flipped. Fong and third Uncle Wang shared a look of hesitation. Offending two major powers over a grudge wasn't worth it, especially the Lin family. Lin Shanchuan was a legend who had saved the city from beast tides multiple times. But just as the pressure was shifting in my favor, a new voice cut through. My homeroom teacher, Wang Defa, pushed his way into the circle. He looked at the officials with a face full of fake concern. He told them he had to speak the truth as my teacher. He claimed I was narrow-minded, lonely, and full of hate. He said he was worried that if I were left out on bail, I would continue to hurt Li Cheng or even attack other students. Principal Jian looked at him in horror. But Wang Defa didn't stop. He painted me as a violent threat to everyone around me. It was a poisonous, calculated strike. If a teacher claimed a student was a danger to society, bail could be legally denied regardless of who guaranteed it. Fong's eyes lit up. The trap was closing again. The homeroom teacher's word carried a lot of weight. Because Wang Defa labeled me as highly dangerous, The officials decided to deny my bail immediately. They claimed it was for the safety of Li Cheng and the other students. Wang Defa glanced coldly at Zhao Daping and Lin Shuiyao. His voice was dripping with sarcasm. He told them that as immature students, they were easily deceived by lies. He made it clear they didn't have the power to protect me. Then, he waved his hand, signaling the investigators to step forward and arrest me. Third Uncle Wang and Wang Xiang watched with smug satisfaction. The surrounding students were stunned. They thought this was the end for a student with twin talents and twin professions. Power was in the hands of the elite, and they only needed a simple excuse to crush someone like me. Fairness only exists between equals. In this world, without strength, you have no voice. Just as everyone thought I was doomed, a powerful voice boomed across the plaza. It sounded like rolling thunder. Oh, so these kids can't protect him. But what about me, Lin Shanchuan? The voice came from a distance, but it hit like a physical shock. Everyone trembled and turned toward the entrance. A man walked toward us with steady, rhythmic steps. He looked to be in his late 50s, standing as straight as a pine tree. His face was sharp and angular, sharing a resemblance with Lin Shuiyao, but his eyes were filled with the coldness of someone who had survived decades of war. He didn't look aggressive, yet the very air in the plaza seemed to freeze as he approached. "It's the war god," someone shouted. The crowd split instantly. People didn't just move aside, they scrambled back in deep respect. Lin Shanchuan was the strongest fighter in Sangzhou. He was an icon for every warrior. No matter how much political power you had, it didn't matter if you couldn't survive one of his punches. Vice Director Fong, the arrogant fat official, turned pale the moment he saw him. His head dropped instantly. He stammered, saying he didn't know the war god was involved. Lin Shanchuan's voice wasn't loud, but every word felt like a hammer blow. He asked if the investigation bureau had stopped doing its job and become someone else's lapdog, especially to target a student. Fong was sweating bullets. He nodded frantically, promising they would leave immediately now that the war god had spoken. He had no choice but to bow his head. Lin Shanchuan was a heavyweight even on a national level. A small city vice director wasn't even worth a flick of his finger. Besides, Fong knew exactly what was happening. He was helping the Wang family frame me. Those excuses might work on others, but they were useless against a man like Lin Shanchuan. "Get out," Lin Shanchuan said calmly. "I'll be having a word with your director." Fong looked like he had seen a ghost. If he had known Lin Shanchuan would step in for me, he never would have come. Third Uncle Wang's face was green, but he didn't dare utter a sound. Even the head of the Wang family wouldn't dare challenge the war god. After scaring off the officials, Lin Shanchuan looked over at Third Uncle Wang. He asked if the Wang family had any objections. Third Uncle Wang waved his hands dismissively, claiming it was all a big misunderstanding. He knew the war god wasn't being polite. He was mocking them. Wang Xiang's eyes were bloodshot. He hissed at his uncle, unable to accept that his perfect plan to destroy me was falling apart. He wanted my bonus points. He wanted me gone. But his uncle snapped at him to shut up. The situation had changed, and they were lucky to be leaving at all. Fong and the Wang family turned and left. They were as pathetic in retreat as they were arrogant when they arrived. As he walked away, Wang Xiang gave me one last hateful look. The students were in shock. The pathetic orphan they had been mocking had the war god standing behind him. Some of them began to tremble, remembering the insults they had thrown my way earlier. Principal Jian and the other school officials rushed forward to greet him. Lin Shanchuan waved them off politely, but then he looked at Principal Jian. He noted that while the principal had done a good job over the years, his management of the teaching staff was lacking. Principal Jian shivered. He turned his gaze toward Wang Defa, who was trying to hide in the back of the crowd. The principal roared at him, accusing him of lying and distorting the truth. Suddenly, the principal's story changed. Now, I was a model student, kind, hardworking, and beloved by everyone. He told Wang Defa that the school would be reviewing his teaching credentials immediately. Wang Defa went white. He had played the pawn for the Wang family, and now they had abandoned him without a second glance. Once the trash was cleared out, Lin Shanchuan turned to look at me. I looked back at him, my face expressionless. From the moment the investigators arrived, I hadn't said a single word in my own defense. I had just watched them like a spectator. In my mind, I hadn't been thinking about bail. I had been calculating the best time to strike, whether to kill them here in the plaza or wait until we were on the road. I knew the Bureau and the Wong family were two sides of the same coin. You can't reason with people like that. While they thought I was a helpless kid with two useless professions, I was actually a hidden powerhouse. I could have escaped on my own if I had to. I could have vanished into the mountains and lived as a ghost. Lu Hao, are you alright? Lin Shanchuan asked. The surrounding students watched with envy. They thought I was the luckiest person alive to have such a powerful backer. But I didn't feel lucky. I looked at the man who had abandoned my father and brother to their deaths. Lin Shanchuan, I said, my voice cold and flat. Don't think I'm going to thank you for this. I didn't need your help. The plaza went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. The students, the teachers, even the principals were frozen in shock. No one talked to the war god like that. Without him, I'd be in a cell. Lin Shuiyao was the first to snap. She screamed at me, asking how I could be so disrespectful after he just saved me. She demanded I thank him. Lin Shanchuan simply raised a hand, silencing his daughter. He didn't look angry at all. In fact, he just gave me a faint, calm smile. Lin Shanchuan looked at me with a meaningful expression. There was a flicker of what looked like relief, or maybe even pride, in his eyes. He told me I had done well. Lin Shuiyao stood beside him, her eyes wide with confusion. She asked him what was wrong, but he just looked at her with doting affection. He noted that she had reached level 9 in the novice realm, and she beamed with pride, bragging that she had taken first place. Lin Shanchuan glanced at me one last time before taking his daughter's hand. He told her it was time to go home. I didn't wait around. I turned and pushed through the crowd toward the plaza exit. My pace was fast, but my mind was strangely calm. The Lin family owed me. What Lin Shanchuan had done today didn't wipe the slate clean for what happened to my father and brother. I didn't need his explanations, and I certainly didn't need his charity. I just needed to get stronger. I needed to reach a point where I could demand my own answers. That day at the plaza taught me one thing. I couldn't rely on anyone else. I was the only one I could trust. How? Wait for me, Zhao Daping shouted, running to catch up. He looked breathless and immediately started apologizing. He felt guilty for accidentally shouting out my level back at the portal, which had caused all that trouble with the investigators. I waved him off. It wasn't his fault. In fact, I thanked him for standing up for me. It was rare to find a classmate who would risk their own neck like that. Whatever his motives were, I noted the favor. He laughed it off, saying we were old seatmates and that he knew Li Cheng was a scumbag. Then he got serious. He asked what I planned to do next. The main university exams were still a while away, and the school was organizing repeat runs of the Misty Forest for the other students. I shook my head. I wasn't going back there. I needed higher-level dungeons. Daping's eyes lit up. He told me his family had plenty of dungeon scrolls, dark forests, bloodbone ruins, frost canyons. He offered to take me to his place to pick whatever I wanted. I stopped walking and looked him straight in the eye. I asked him what he wanted in return. Nobody is nice for no reason. He rubbed his hands together, grinning. He admitted he couldn't hide anything from me. He just wanted me to carry him while I cleared the dungeons. I gave him a dry look. I reminded him that I was just a level 6 lifestyle worker. What could I possibly carry him through? He didn't seem worried. He said he could hire a few high-level experts to fill out the team. I nodded slowly and agreed to go. Suddenly, a red convertible screeched to a halt in front of us. The driver was a girl around 16 or 17 with wine-red hair and heavy, dark eyeliner that made her eyes look cold. She wore a black crop top and tight leather pants that showed off her long legs. She looked rebellious and completely unimpressed by the world. Daping opened the door and told me to get in. He introduced her as his sister, Zhao Shaoling, though he said most people called her Master Zhao. She glanced at me, frowned slightly, but didn't say a word. As soon as we sat down, she floored it. The car launched like a rocket, pinning me against the seat with a violent surge of G-force. The wind was so loud I could barely breathe. This wasn't driving, it was low-altitude flight. I gripped the door handle so hard my knuckles turned white. The speedometer blurred past 200, then 300 kilometers per hour. Shaoling steered with one hand while holding a cigarette in the other, a tiny smirk on her lips. She wove through traffic like a red streak of lightning. With a final, bone-jarring screech of tires, she slammed the brakes in front of a massive, golden manor. "Little trashes," she muttered, hopping out of the car without looking back. My face was pale, and my stomach was doing somersaults. I had never been in a car driven that aggressively. Dapeng crawled out after me, his legs shaking. He muttered that he shouldn't have called her to pick us up. I just looked at him and told him his sister was insane. He rubbed his hands awkwardly as he led me inside. He explained that Xiaoling was a prodigy. Even before her class awakening, she could craft high-quality equipment. The Zhao family had gone from a small workshop to a wealthy powerhouse because of her talent. Now, she had awakened an S-rank talent called Heart of the Divine Smith. Every major power was trying to recruit her. In this world, equipment ranks went from common to mythic. Being able to craft exquisite gear was already impressive, and excellent was usually the ceiling for most master smiths. I realized then that she wasn't just some bratty teenager. She was a genius. I didn't have a single piece of gear on me, mostly because I couldn't afford it and low-level gear became obsolete too fast anyway. Dapeng ran upstairs to grab the scrolls, leaving me in the backyard near a detached building that looked like a storage shed. It was filled with junk, but mostly piles of discarded ore. There were hundreds of stones in shades of gray, dark red, and dull yellow. I picked up a fist-sized piece of dark red ore and recognized it as crimson vein stone. It had been refined, but it was full of impurities, making it useless to a smith. I had been extracting stats from beasts and plants, but I had never tried it on minerals. A thought struck me. I activated endless extraction. The system confirmed I was refining ore and began reverse extracting the impurities. I felt a surge of excitement, but it was short-lived. My energy bar plummeted. Even with my high spirit stats, my energy was drained in less than 2 seconds. This was an expensive process. I didn't stop, though. I used my resources to replenish my energy and kept going. If I could refine ore, my path to power would widen significantly. Minerals were worth far more than herbs. Black mist hissed out of the stone like dust hitting the floor. The ore shifted from a dull dark red to a brilliant, glowing crimson. It shrank in size but gained a translucent luster. Just then, Dapeng came downstairs clutching a stack of scrolls. Xiaoling wandered out from another room, looking bored. She mocked him when she saw what he was carrying. She pointed out that he had grabbed level 20 and 30 scrolls, and laughed at the idea of 2 level 6 noobs surviving those. Dapeng snapped back, telling her she was just a lifestyle worker who didn't understand combat. He called her a spendthrift, pointing to the carts of discarded or being hauled out of her room. He claimed she had wasted over 1,000,000 credits on that batch of ore. Xiaoling rolled her eyes and told him he didn't know anything. Crafting required high-purity materials. Out of 1,000,000 credits worth of rock, she had only managed to get 2 pieces with 80% purity. Her talent was being held back by the garbage materials available to her. I looked down at the glowing, purified stone in my hand and realized I might have exactly what she was looking for. Xiaoling's words echoed in my head. She claimed her talent was being held back by the garbage purity of the materials she had. I looked down at the stone in my palm. The extraction had been a success. I had pulled every single impurity out of the red text stone. What used to be a jagged rock was now only the size of a thumb, glowing a deep, translucent crimson. Fine veins, like the patterns on a leaf, pulsed across its surface, radiating a gentle warmth. It looked like a completely different object. I realized then that my extraction skill worked differently on minerals. For herbs and beasts, I stripped away their life essence and power. For ore, I stripped away the waste. It opened up a whole new world of possibilities for me. However, this tiny piece wasn't enough to do much with yet. I casually tossed the high-purity gem back onto the massive pile of scrap ore and turned around. Dapeng was running toward me, clutching his stack of scrolls. In this world, ever since the Great Cataclysm, humanity had been dealing with dungeons and secret realms. They were like fragments of different civilizations scattered across our reality. Dungeons were private. Every team got their own separate space to compete in. Secret realms were public channels where everyone met in the same area, competing for resources that grew and evolved over time. The scrolls Dapeng held were the keys to entering them. "Brother Hao, I found them," Dapeng panted, showing me the scrolls. "We can finally make our big move." These are perfect for us. I glanced at the titles. Asterisk Breeze Plains. Thistle Woodlands. Asterisk. They were level 5 to 10 dungeons. I didn't even hesitate. I swiped them out of his hand and tossed them aside. Too low, I said. Daping stared at me, confused. Too low? We're only level 6. These monsters are way tougher than the ones in the novice zone. I ignored him and flipped through the rest of the stack. I had a clear goal. First, I needed a dungeon that produced, or so I could make money. Second, since my fire talent was my strongest asset, I needed to find a way to boost it even further. Finally, I stopped at one specific scroll. We're doing this one tomorrow, I said, tapping the paper. Mystic Mine. It's a level 20 dungeon. Daping's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Are you crazy? Just the two of us? At level 6? There are elites and bosses in there. Just bring the scrolls, I said, standing up. We'll talk about it then. I'm heading home. Daping looked worried. Stay here tonight, Hal. Wang Xiang is watching you. If you go back alone, I'm afraid they'll try something. It's fine, I replied calmly. See you at the association tomorrow. As I walked away, I had no idea the internet was currently exploding. On every school forum in Sangzhou, one post was being pinned to the top. Urgent search for Yan, the mysterious powerhouse who saved goddess Lin Shuiyao. The post detailed how a mysterious man named Yan had appeared in the level 9 zone, one-shotting a level 10 elite Iron Ride Bear to save Shuiyao's team. The rumors said he was level 13 and had cleared the entire forest alone. The students were losing their minds. Nobody believed a student could be level 13 already. Some thought he was a secret genius from a great family. Others thought it was a lie. Meanwhile, in the Wang family mansion, a loud crack echoed through the hall. Wang Tianba, the head of the family, had just backhanded his son, Wang Xiang, across the face. Useless, Tianba hissed. His eyes were cold and sharp like a predator's. Your level is lower than the others, and you failed to get the bonus points. I raise wolves, not sheep. Xiang clutched his red cheek, his voice trembling with rage. It's Lu Hao's fault. If he hadn't refused to give up his points, and if Li Cheng hadn't been injured, I would be number 1. Then why didn't you kill him in the forest? Tianba growled. I don't care about the process, only results. You are indecisive. If you can't even handle a lifestyle worker, how can I give you the family business? Xiang's eyes turned bloodshot. Next time I see him, I'll kill him. I promise. Tianba looked at his son with pure frost. The Wang family started in the underworld. People are starting to forget that. If you aren't ranked first by the time the final exams start, I'm cutting you off. Across town, the Lin family was having dinner. Shuiyao was telling her father, Lin Shanchuan, about the trial. When she mentioned me, her face was full of disappointment. He has no combat power, but to abandon his friends when danger comes, that's a character flaw, she said, sounding relieved. I always felt like our family owed him, but after today, the debt is paid. Then, her tone shifted when she spoke about Yin. Her eyes lit up with a mix of awe and sadness. He was incredible, Dad. His speed, his fire skills, he was level 13. If not for him, we might be dead. But after we left the portal, he just vanished. I'm ranked first now, but I know it's a lie. I can't stop thinking about why a loser like Lu Hao and a hero like Yin can be so different. Lin Shanchuan took a sip of his tea and smiled faintly. Maybe the person you're looking for is right in front of you. Shuiyao froze, staring at him. Dad, what do you mean? Lin Shanchuan didn't explain further. He just sipped his tea and asked how many days were left until the big university exam. He wanted to know if Shuiyao was going to keep grinding the novice zones with her school or head out into the wild dungeons. Shuiyao's eyes burned with a new fire. She told him she'd already talked it out with Su Wan and the others. They were heading to the wild dungeons. She was convinced that a powerhouse like Yin would definitely be there. She wanted to find him. After dinner, Lin Shanchuan went to his study alone. He unlocked a drawer and pulled out a faded, yellowed photograph. It showed 3 people standing in front of a strange, eerie portal. If I had been there, I would have recognized them instantly. Beside a younger Lin Shanchuan stood my father, Lu Yuanshan, and my sister, Lu Qing. He stared at the photo for a long time, whispering my father's name. He admitted he thought the burden of their unfinished business would fall solely on Shuiyao once he heard I had only awakened a lifestyle talent. But today changed everything. He realized I had fooled the world. His face twisted with disbelief. If I truly possessed the perfect extraction talent, one of the legendary 36 perfect professions, then the implications were terrifying. It meant I could potentially plunder and copy every other perfect talent in existence. If that were true, I wasn't just a student. I was the chosen one of the talent realm. Then he sighed. He muttered that if I were just a normal worker, I might have lived a peaceful life. But in that place, even the strongest faced certain death. Suddenly, he doubled over in a violent coughing fit. When he looked up, a trail of eerie, black-red blood leaked from his lips. He looked out the window, wondering how much time he had left. He needed me to grow strong, and he needed it to happen fast. Meanwhile, I headed back to Old Wu's workshop. The moment I walked in, he rushed over, checking me for injuries. He'd heard the Wang family's investigation bureau was coming after me. I told him the truth, how Wang Xiang and Wang Defa tried to blackmail me into giving up my extra credit points. Old Wu slammed his hand on the table, furious. He growled that the Wangs were only so bold because my father and sister were gone. He reminded me that my father was the reason he could even open this shop. He swore he'd protect me, even if it cost him his life. I appreciated the sentiment, but I had business to attend to. I pulled out a bottle of spirit soul liquid I'd extracted in the forest. Old Wu took it, opened the stopper, and froze. His voice trembled. It was perfect purity. Again, he had thought I was just picking weeds, but this was high-level alchemy material. He told me a standard bottle went for 400, but for this quality, he'd give me 700. I nodded, then waved my hand. Dozens of bottles appeared on the table, glowing with a lush green light. There were 647 bottles of Grade 1 liquid, and 5 bottles from Grade 2 herbs. Old Wu's jaw hit the floor. He asked if I had literally stripped the entire hidden realm bare. I just laughed and told him I found a cave full of the stuff. Old Wu told me he wanted it all, but it was too much for him to handle alone. He wanted to introduce me to President Luo of the Senro Group. They were a massive pharmaceutical giant based in the capital, and they were currently in a shadow war with the Wang family over the market in Songzhou. He looked me dead in the eye and explained the stakes. High-quality liquid wasn't just about money anymore. If Senro got these, they could create new medicines to crush the Wang family. If the Wangs got them, they'd monopolize everything: medicine, healing, and resources. In this city, I had to choose a side. He warned me that if word got out about what I could do, every major power in the country would be at my door by morning. It was an opportunity, but it was also a death warrant. I stayed silent for a moment, then nodded. I told him to set up the meeting for tomorrow night. When I left the shop, I had another 800,000 in my pocket. Between the liquid and the monster materials I'd scavenged, my total wealth was climbing fast. I had nearly 2 million now. It was enough to fund my next move. I just had to hope the Senro Group was trustworthy. In this era of change, the only way to stay alive was to get strong as fast as possible. The next morning, I arrived at the Professional Association. It was a massive gray building with high ceilings and glowing crystals. The lobby was packed with warriors and mages moving toward teleportation gates. "Brother Hao, over here." Zhao Dapeng was waving frantically by a pillar. He sent me a team invite, and I accepted. I noticed 3 others standing with him, 2 men and a woman. Zhao Dapeng introduced them as experts he'd hired to help us clear a difficult dungeon called the Mysterious Mine. The leader was a woman in her early 20s named Feng Yan. She was a high-level spear wielder, an agility-based fighter. She looked at my basic stats and frowned. She asked Zhao Dapeng why he was bringing a low-level worker into a dungeon this difficult. She complained that I'd lower their experience gain and that they'd have to waste energy protecting me. Behind her, a massive tank of a man with bulging muscles grunted in agreement. They saw me as a burden. They had no idea I was the strongest person in the room. The big man with the bulging muscles grunted again, his voice like gravel. "Look, Boss Zhao, in a place like the Mysterious Mine, we can only guarantee your safety. We can't protect 2 of you." The third member of their group was a scrawny man holding a wooden staff, a wind mage. He sneered at me. "Bringing 1 newbie is hard enough. Bringing 2 isn't a dungeon run, it's a suicide mission." Zhao Dapeng saw the tension rising and started sweating. He laughed awkwardly, trying to smooth things over. Captain Fong, how about this? I'll add another 200,000 to the payout. Fong Yan's eyes flickered. She bit her lip, the greed winning out over her hesitation. Fine. If the money is right, we'll do our best. But let's be clear, we are only running this on normal difficulty. I knew the breakdown. Dungeons had 4 levels: normal, hard, nightmare, and hell. On normal, the monsters were basic. On hard, their stats doubled, but so did the experience. Nightmare tripled everything, and hell quadrupled it. A level 20 monster in a hell tier dungeon was basically as strong as a level 50 boss. Since the mysterious mine barred anyone over level 20 from entering, almost no one cleared nightmare, and hell mode was considered impossible. Zhao Dapeng leaned in and whispered to me, rubbing his hands together. Brother Hao, I'm sorry I hired them without asking you first. But the monsters in there are level 16 to 21. Without them, we'd be dead the moment we stepped inside. Captain Fong knows the place well. Normal mode should be safe. I looked at the floor, weighing my options. If I were actually a level 6 worker, his plan would have been perfect. It was careful and logical. Part of me considered just following them, staying in the back, and scavenging the corpses while they did the heavy lifting. It wasn't a bad way to spend the afternoon. A level 6 loser actually dares to show up at a field dungeon. A cold, familiar voice cut through the lobby. I looked up to see Wang Xiang walking toward us. Zhao Hong was trailing behind him, along with 3 strangers who radiated power. They all wore the Wang family crest on their chests. These were high-level protectors. Wang Xiang glared at me, his hand resting on the hilt of his heavy broadsword. I could see the pure hatred in his eyes. Because of me, he'd lost his bonus points, and his father had slapped him across the face, calling him a weakling. If we weren't standing inside the professional association building, he probably would have tried to kill me right then and there. He glanced at Zhao Dapeng, and then at Fong Yan's team. His expression darkened. He clearly thought I was trying to leech off the Zhao family to level up, just like he was doing with his family's experts. Listen up, Wang Xiang shouted, his voice echoing through the massive hall. Everyone stopped to look. This kid is Lu Hao. He stole my points and hurt my teammates. I'm putting the word out right now. Anyone who helps this brat in a field dungeon is an enemy of the Wang family. He pointed a finger directly at my face. Anyone who helps him will never buy another potion from the Wang family again. No matter where you hide in Songzhou, we will hunt you down. The atmosphere in the lobby shifted instantly. People started whispering, their eyes darting between me and the Wang family guards. Who is that kid? Why is he messing with the Wangs? He looks like a high schooler. He's finished. You can't survive in this city if the Wang family blacklists you. Zhao Dapeng stepped forward, his face red with anger. Wang Xiang, don't you think you're going too far? We were classmates for 3 years. Just because you couldn't steal his points. Zhao Dapeng, you've crossed me one too many times, Wang Xiang snapped. Keep it up, and the Wangs will deal with your family next. He turned his gaze to Fong Yan's team. Did you hear what I said? Suddenly, I heard 2 pings in my ear. A notification popped up. Qian Shihao has left the party. Zhao Zhongyang has left the party. The big tank and the wind mage didn't even hesitate. They walked straight over to Wang Xiang, bowing their heads. Sorry, young Master Wang, the tank said. We didn't know he had a grudge with you. We've already left the team. We won't get in your way. Exactly, the mage added, looking back at me with disgust. I didn't want to carry these 2 losers anyway. We'll do exactly as you say. Fong Yin stood frozen, her face pale. The Wang family is powerful, but this is bullying, she muttered. She was in a tough spot. She needed the money. Her father was sick, and she had a reputation for taking dangerous jobs just to pay the bills. This 50,000 plus bonus job was supposed to be easy money. Now, it was a death sentence for her career. Fong Yin, have you lost your mind? One of the Wang family protectors growled. He stepped toward her. You want to defy us? We could crush a freelancer like you with one finger. She looked trapped. Her teammates had already betrayed her. If she stayed with us, the Wangs would destroy her family. If she left, she'd look like a coward. Dapeng, make me the leader, I said quietly. Zhao Dapeng didn't ask questions. He transferred the leadership to me immediately. I tapped the screen. System, you have kicked Fong Yan from the party. Fong Yan's face flushed red. She looked at me, part of her feeling insulted, but I saw the overwhelming relief in her eyes. Nobody wanted to be an enemy of the Wang family. Wang Xiang smirked, looking like he'd already won. Without a team, I couldn't enter the dungeon. The school's second trial started in 3 days. If he kept me out of the field dungeons until then, I wouldn't gain a single level. I'd be stuck at level 6 while everyone else pulled ahead. I won't say it again, Wang Xiang announced to the crowd, his voice full of pride. Tell your friends. If the Wang family finds out anyone is partying with these two, you're done. The crowd quickly chimed in, eager to please the powerful heir. Don't worry, young Master Wang. We won't help them. Yeah, they're on their own. I stood there, listening to the insults, my expression blank. They thought they were locking me out. They had no idea I was just waiting for the dead weight to leave. We can't afford to offend the Wang family just for a little mission money, the other freelancers muttered, backing away. Don't worry, young Master Wang. We'll spread the word throughout the association. Nobody will dare take a job from these two. Zhao Dapeng watched them leave, his face pale with anxiety. Brother Hao, he whispered, stepping closer to me. I raised a hand to silence him. I wasn't worried. Wang Xiang looked down at us with a cold, mocking sneer. Lu Hao, don't think the Zhao family can protect you. You crossed me, and now there's no place for you in Sangzhou. This is just the beginning. With a flourish of his expensive cape, he led his 4 teammates toward a shimmering portal. A moment later, the overhead display updated. Asterisk Wang Xiang's party has entered the secret mine. Difficulty, hard, asterisk. The crowd erupted in hushed whispers. As expected of the Wang family heir. Straight into a level 20 dungeon on hard mode. Of course, look at their gear. The 2 protectors are wearing full sets of excellent grade equipment. One of them is worth 3 normal players. If they grind hard mode for 5 days, Wang Xiang's level will be untouchable in the whole city. Some of the observers turned their eyes toward me, their expressions full of pity or mockery. Who does this kid think he is, offending the Wangs? They never forget a grudge. Without a team, he won't even be able to clear a level 10 dungeon. It's a death sentence for his career, another added. He won't just struggle to level up. He won't be able to buy a single potion or pick up a single contract in this city. Fang Yin stood nearby, her head bowed in shame. She walked over to Zhao Dapeng, her voice trembling. I'm sorry, Boss Zhao. I'll return the 200,000 deposit immediately. This isn't right, but I can't fight the Wangs. Dapeng sighed and waved her off. Forget it. You're a freelancer. You can't handle their pressure. He turned to me, his voice full of doubt. What now, Brother Hao? With the Wang family blocking us, nobody will join our party. Even if I find someone, they'll either be too low level to help or too high level to enter the dungeon. We don't need anyone else, I said calmly. Let's go. My eyes were cold. Wang Xiang had bullied me in school with our teacher, Wang Defa, and now he was using his family's influence to crush me. He hadn't managed to hurt me yet, but I was keeping a mental tally. One day, I would settle the debt in full. I started walking toward the teleportation array. Dapeng followed me like a lost puppy, confused but loyal. We warped to a small plaza 20 miles northwest of Sangzhou. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. A few city guards stood watch, their hands on their weapons to keep the wild beasts at bay. Brother Hao, we don't have a carry, Dapeng stammered, looking at the dark entrance of the secret mine. Why are we still here? Give me the scroll, I said. Dapeng handed it over. I gripped the parchment and tore it down the middle. The scroll dissolved into 2 streaks of light. One shot into the void, creating a rippling portal like water in the air. The other light wrapped around us like a protective cocoon. A system screen popped up in front of my eyes. Select difficulty, normal, hard, nightmare, hell. I didn't hesitate and tapped the bottom option. Difficulty, hell. Before Dapeng could even process what I'd done, the light intensified, and we were sucked into the abyss. Back at the association hall, the drama seemed to be over. The crowd was starting to disperse, heading back to their own business. Then, a sudden scream shattered the quiet. Wait. Look at the board. Everyone stopped in their tracks. The association's real-time feedback screen was scrolling with new data. What the hell? Those 2 kids just entered the secret mine on nightmare difficulty. The hall went silent for a heartbeat before exploding into chaos. Are they insane? The monsters in there start at level 16, and on nightmare mode, their stats are quadrupled. That's like fighting level 50 monsters. They're only level 6. One hit from a mob, and there'll be nothing but red mist. Fang Yin was halfway out the door when she heard the shouting. Her heart sank, and she felt a surge of guilt, thinking they had misclicked the difficulty out of desperation because she had abandoned them. But then she paused. Zhao Dapeng was a rich heir. He wasn't the suicidal type. And Lu Hao. Even though I'd only met him today, I seemed too steady, too calm to be a fool. Why would we choose a difficulty that even the best guilds in the city avoided? Last year, the Prince's Guild sent 5 level 20 elites into the nightmare mode, and they were slaughtered. My former teammates laughed loudly. The Wang family drove them crazy. 2 level 6s in a nightmare dungeon? They're just flies waiting to be swatted. They'll be running back here in less than a minute, if they survive long enough to find the exit. Inside the dungeon, the world was different. The air was cold and smelled of sulfur and wet stone. We stood before a massive, rusted iron gate that led into a dark tunnel. The passage was 20 meters wide and 5 meters high, stretching deep into the earth where the light couldn't reach. I looked into the darkness and tightened my grip. The real hunt was about to begin. Dim yellow mining lamps hung every 10 meters along the rock walls, casting a weak, flickering glow over the tunnel. The ground was littered with shattered ore and rotting wooden supports. The air felt heavy, damp, and cold. It carried a sickening mix of rust, rotting meat, and the metallic tang of underground soil. From deep within the darkness, I heard a faint, rhythmic sound. Clink, clink, clink. Someone was striking the rock walls with a pickaxe. Zhao Dapeng stood frozen, his face pale. His lips trembled as he looked at me. How? Do you have any idea what you just did? His voice cracked. This is the nightmare version of a level 20 secret mine. The color drained completely from his skin. He lunged forward, grabbing my right arm with both hands. My God, we have to leave right now? If we wait any longer, it'll be too late. He was clearly panicking. He probably regretted letting me hold the teleportation scroll. He had hired those 3 experts earlier just to attempt the normal difficulty, planning to move slowly and carefully. If we don't try, how will we know if it works? I said calmly. I thought you made a mistake, Zhao Dapeng stammered, staring at me like I was a madman. You actually entered this difficulty on purpose? I shook his hand off and stepped through the entrance gate, walking straight into the depths of the mine. Zhao Dapeng looked back at the portal, then at my retreating back, and finally stomped his foot in frustration. He gritted his teeth and ran to catch up. Master Lu, you're really going in, he hissed. This is a nightmare zone. Even a 5-man team of level 20s wouldn't dare come here. You can't just throw your life away because the Wang family is pressuring you. Suddenly, a shadow appeared ahead. It was a small, hunched figure, a gnome. He was hacking at the wall with a shovel, muttering to himself. Not enough, need to dig deeper. The Lord wants more ore. When will I finish? I want to go home. The creature sensed us and stopped. It turned its head slowly. There were no pupils in its hollow sockets, only 2 flickering sparks of eerie green light. The moment their eyes met, Zhao Dapeng gasped, clutching his chest as if an iron vice had squeezed his heart. It was a level 16 death miner. On nightmare difficulty, its stats were equivalent to a level 50 monster. The creature shrieked and charged at us, its tattered clothes fluttering. Despite its withered appearance, it moved incredibly fast. In less than 20 seconds, it had closed the gap to 50 meters. A terrifying pressure rolled off it like a tidal wave. Zhao Dapeng's legs turned to lead. It's over, he whimpered. We can't even run back to the exit in time. In the next heartbeat, his eyes nearly popped out of his head. I launched myself forward like a projectile. My body blurred into a phantom, moving even faster than the monster. As I sprinted, a red light flashed in my hand. A massive fireball exploded against the miner's chest with a deafening roar. Sparks flew everywhere. I reached him before the smoke cleared and threw a heavy punch. There was a dull thud, and the miner was sent flying into the air. I didn't stop. Another flash of red light followed. A second bursting fireball hit him midair. Before he could even hit the ground, I stepped forward and delivered one final blow, slamming him hard against the cavern wall. A notification flashed on the party interface. Asterisk, your team killed a gnome miner. You gained 512 experience points. Asterisk. A glow surrounded Zhao Dapeng. He had leveled up to level 7. He stood there with his mouth wide open, looking at me as if he'd seen a ghost. To be fair, this was a level 16 monster buffed by nightmare difficulty, but I wasn't a normal level 6. I was level 14. My strength, agility, spirit, and constitution were all several times higher than average. My spirit alone was at 123 points. Combined with my tier 2 skills and high agility, failing to kill a single mob would have been the real joke. I reached my hand over the corpse. Endless extraction. Asterisk strength +2. Red-veined iron or +1. Asterisk. I looked at the ore in my hand. It was the size of a fist, covered in dark red, rust-like patterns, and incredibly hard. It was a common material for forging low-level gear, but it sold well. The more money I made, the faster I could grow. Zhao Dapeng rushed over, staring at me like he didn't recognize me. How, am I dreaming? You just one-shot that thing. He suddenly scrambled back a few steps, his eyes bulging. You really are level 14. My God, it's true. Yesterday, when we left the novice zone, he was the first to see my true level before I masked it. He had been confused ever since, but now that I had gained experience, my disguise had flickered. The truth was out. How did you do it? He whispered. The record for the Misty Plains has been level 10 for a decade. Stop complaining, I said coldly, cutting him off. We're here to clear a dungeon, not to listen to you chatter. I kept moving. A short distance away, 4 more miners with glowing green eyes stood together. They all spotted us at once. Oh no, we pulled 4, Zhao Dapeng yelled. How, fall back. It's too many. Before he could finish his sentence, fireballs began forming in my left hand. I fired them in rapid succession. Each fireball hit a target, and the splashing flames engulfed the others. Explosion after explosion rocked the tunnel. Before the 4 monsters could get within 20 meters of us, they collapsed into heaps of bone and rags. 4 notifications flashed. Asterisk your team killed a death miner. 512 experience gained. Asterisk. My God, they're dead. That's over 2,000 experience, just like that. Zhao Dapeng was trembling with excitement. I'm about to level up again. I nodded, satisfied. A normal level 16 mob gave about 160 experience. The nightmare multiplier made it 640. Even after splitting some with Zhao Dapeng, the gains were massive. I walked to the 4 corpses and used endless extraction again. Beyond the 8 points of strength and 4 pieces of ore, a new notification popped up. Asterisk ding. Extraction triggered a critical hit. You have obtained Tier 2 skill. Detection. Asterisk. Detection allows the user to see basic information of minerals or biological entities. I felt a surge of excitement. A Tier 2 skill, and a useful one at that. I already had an eyesight enhancement ability. Combining the two would make this new skill even more powerful. I looked deeper into the mine, ready for more. These miners had spent years trapped in these dark, suffocating tunnels. They spent their lives digging for ore, and over time, they developed a near-supernatural sense for finding minerals. I decided to test my new skill. I focused my gaze on one of the fallen corpses and activated detection. A screen of data flickered before my eyes. Death Miner, level 16, Nightmare Enhanced. Its stats were terrifying: 250 strength, 60 agility, 30 spirit, and 90 physique. It had a skill called Mining Pick Strike. The description told a grim story. These men were bound by a curse to repeat their daily labor even in death, fueled by pure hostility toward any intruder. I grinned. The skill was even better than I expected. With this information, I could plan my attacks perfectly. That strength stat was insane, though. At 250, one hit would probably snap Zhao Dapeng like a twig. Luckily, their physique wasn't nearly as high. As long as I kept up my relentless bombardment of fireballs, I could vaporize them before they ever touched me. I realized then how vital my fire spells were. Once I cleared this mine, my next goal was a fire element dungeon to boost my talents even further. How? I feel terrible, Zhao Dapeng muttered from behind me. He looked guilty, watching his experience bar skyrocket while I did all the work. I'm just standing here soaking up experience. I feel like a parasite. Earlier, he had paid 70,000 credits for a team that couldn't give him even 30% of the experience he was getting now. He was a businessman's son. He knew there was no such thing as a free lunch. If he didn't contribute, he was afraid I'd dump him. Who says you're useless? I asked, turning to him. You're a ranger, right? What are your skills? I have 2 Tier 1 skills, he said quickly. Rapid fire for my crossbow and evasion slide for movement. Perfect, I said, a plan forming. I need you to run ahead and pull the mobs. Bring them back to me in one big group. Killing them one by one is too slow. Zhao Dapeng's eyes nearly popped out of his head. How? I'm a level 7 glass cannon. You want me to sprint into a pack of level 16 nightmare monsters? That's suicide. Relax, I said, patting his shoulder. Rangers were born for pulling mobs. I believe in you. Please no, he whimpered. I knew what he was thinking, that I was a cold-hearted strategist. He wasn't wrong. Think about it, I countered. Follow me, and I guarantee you'll outlevel Wang Xiang. You might even be the second highest ranked student in all of Sangzhou. You'll get into a top martial arts university. You'll finally be someone important in those fancy clubs you frequent. Besides, you don't have to fight. Just throw something at them and run back. It's as easy as drinking water. My gaze turned cold. But if you can't even handle this small task, I'll have to kick you from the party. 10 minutes later, the dark tunnels were filled with the sound of desperate screaming. Help! How? Save me! I'm gonna die. Zhao Dapeng was sprinting for his life, a dozen miners with glowing green eyes hot on his heels. If it wasn't for his evasion slide, a rusty pickaxe would have split his skull open minutes ago. I didn't panic. I was busy prying a palm-sized chunk of, or from the wall. It shimmered like cracked ice under my lamp, frost copper ore. It was a rare material used for agility-based armor. I tucked it away, waited for the perfect moment, and then turned around. Here they come, I whispered. I raised my left hand. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Fireballs screamed past Zhao Dapeng's head, slamming into the crowd behind him with pinpoint accuracy. I treated my Tier 2 skills like basic attacks, unleashing a relentless barrage like a human rocket launcher. Any other mage would be sweating over their mana bar, calculating every drop of energy. If Lin Shuiyao saw me now, her jaw would hit the floor. My ability to instantly replenish mana didn't just give me endurance, it multiplied my combat power tenfold. By the time a pale, panting Zhao Dapeng collapsed at my feet, the miners were nothing but piles of ash and bone. A white light flashed over him. Oh my god, I leveled up again. I'm level 8, he gasped. I checked my own status. I was at 40,000 out of 50,000 experience for level 14. Just one more push, and I'd hit level 15. The requirements were getting steeper, but the stat points gained after level 10 were worth the grind. Why did you only bring 10? I asked, my voice flat. Zhao Dapeng looked like he wanted to cry. Boss, Grandpa, I almost died for those 10. If you don't bring at least 20 next time, don't bother coming back, I said. After a 1-minute break, I herded him back into the darkness. The cycle repeated. Deep underground, a level 8 human was screaming like a madman, dragging hordes of monsters behind him while fireballs turned the tunnels bright red. Another flash of light. I finally hit level 15. I gained 10 more inventory slots and 6 free attribute points. I breathed a sigh of relief. If I were grinding in a normal novice zone, this would have taken weeks. I'm level 9, Zhao Dapeng shouted, his fear replaced by a manic excitement. This is insane. I love this. The rush of almost dying and leveling up this fast. It's incredible. He didn't even wait for me to push him this time. He took off into the depths. We had covered over a kilometer of the main tunnel, clearing out the side veins where the miners hid. Zhao Dapeng was doing the dirty work of flushing them out, and I was the hammer that crushed them. We were a perfect team. I stopped for a moment, spotting another vein of ore in the wall, and began to pry it loose. We were getting rich and powerful, one explosion at a time. I waited for Zhao Dapeng to lure the next batch of monsters back, but the silence was suddenly shattered. A massive explosion thundered from deep within the mine tunnel. The entire cavern shuddered violently. The ground beneath my feet heaved, and dust and debris rained down from the ceiling. My heart skipped a beat. If Zhao Dapeng was caught in that blast, there wouldn't be enough of him left to bury. I realized I had been too careless. I sprinted forward, covering 100 meters in seconds. Through the settling dust, I saw a figure stumbling toward me. It was Zhao Dapeng. He was covered in soot, his face deathly pale, looking like a man who had just seen his own ghost. He was alive. Thank God. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, a new kind of horror emerged alongside the usual gnome miners. These creatures were shorter by half a head, their bodies shriveled and dry like dead wood. In one hand, they clutched flint. In the other, they held bundles of black explosives. I immediately cast my inspection skill. They were mind blasters. Level 18. Nightmare enhanced. Their stats were lopsided, 70 strength, 50 agility, but a staggering 300 spirit. Their constitution was only 80. The description said they were responsible for blasting operations in life, and in death, their instinct to kill with explosives remained. That 300 spirit explained the terrifying power of the blast I just heard. However, their agility and health were lower than the average miner. As long as I didn't let them get close, they were glass cannons. Once they were within 100 meters, I unleashed a barrage of bursting fireballs. After 20 or 30 explosions, the group of miners and blasters collapsed into charred heaps. Notifications flooded my vision. My team had killed the miners for 512 experience each, and the blasters for 576. Those blasters, they plant mines, Zhao Dapeng panted, his chest heaving with terror. I almost stepped on one. It was a hair's breadth away. Can you keep going? I asked. Zhao Dapeng's eyes turned bloodshot, filled with a manic determination. Yes. He wasn't stupid. In less than an hour, he had gained 2 levels, hitting level 9. Following me was like riding a rocket. This was a life-changing opportunity, the kind that never comes twice. Even if a 20-man elite team of level 20s brought him along, the experience split would be tiny. Besides, no sane team would touch a nightmare-level dungeon. I noticed something, I told him. Those blasters are actually pretty dumb. As long as you don't step on their planted charges, they can't touch you. He nodded. My inspection had confirmed it. They laid mines and detonated them, but lacked any other real combat skills. Without their explosives, they were weaker than the miners. We pushed forward. While Zhao Dapeng went to pull the next group, I walked over to the corpses. The miners gave me the usual red stripe iron ore, but when I used endless extraction on a mine blaster, the results were different. I gained 2 points of spirit and a piece of fused iron ore. This new ore was smaller than the red stripe version, but it glowed with a dark red light and felt warm to the touch. It was denser and stronger, a staple material for crafting high-tier weapons. Its market value was double what I'd been collecting. Then, a crisp chime echoed in my head. A critical hit on my extraction. I received a piece of second-tier iron ore and a new skill, detonation. It was a second-tier skill. I could condense fire elements at a specific location to create a hidden explosive point. When I triggered it mentally, it would cause massive damage within a 50-meter radius. It cost 200 mana and had a 30-second cooldown. My eyes lit up. If this skill had the same power as the blast that just rocked the tunnel, it was far superior to my basic fireballs. It required setup, sure, but the raw power was undeniable. Meanwhile, back in the professional association hall, groups of students were starting to gather. Everyone was looking for the most efficient way to level up after the novice zone, and the hidden mine was the top choice. A 5-man team entered the hall, drawing every eye in the room. They were all girls, led by Lin Shueyao. Her white mage robes made her look cold and ethereal. Shueyao, did you hear? A small girl named Xiao Lin ran up to them. Wang Xiang is already inside. He brought his family's protectors and entered the hard difficulty. Zhou Ji's eyebrows shot up. Even with high-level help, hard difficulty for a level 20 dungeon was no joke. He wants the top rank, Su Wan said quietly. Let him try. Lin Wei, Lin Shuyao's older cousin, said firmly. She was a seasoned university student acting as their tank for the day. We're here for a steady clear. Don't worry about him. Lin Shueyao didn't seem to care about Wang Xiang. Instead, she looked at Xiao Lin. Did you see a student named Yin? Su Wan's eyes flickered. She was looking for him too. She had a nagging suspicion that Yin was actually me, though no one believed her. Xiao Lin shook her head. No, but another student team went in earlier. It caused a huge scene. You'll never guess who. Who? Su Wan asked, her heart racing. Zhao Dapeng and Lu Hao. Su Wan bit her lip. I was here. So what? Zhou Ji sneered. The Zhao family has money. They probably hired a bunch of level 20s to carry them. A rich brat and a useless scavenger. What a joke. That's the thing, Shaolin whispered. Wang Xiang told everyone that anyone who helped Lu Hao would be an enemy of the Wang family. The professionals Zhao Dapeng hired quit on the spot. No one would take the job. That's too much, Xiao Shui, the priest muttered. Then how did two level 6s enter a level 20 dungeon? Zhouji demanded. They went in by themselves, Shaolin said. Just the two of them. That's suicide, Xiao Shui cried out. Lin Shuiyao frowned. Her father had just saved me, and here I was, throwing my life away again. He won't learn until he suffers a real disaster, she said coldly. It gets crazier, Shaolin added, her voice dropping. They chose nightmare difficulty. The group went dead silent. Zhou Ji, Xiao Shui, and Lin Shuiyao stood frozen. Are they insane? Zhou Ji finally blurted out. How long have they been in there? Lin Shuiyao asked after a long pause. Almost 2 hours. Lin Wei shook her head in disgust. So this is the guy you were all talking about? The dual-class genius who's actually just a scavenger and a level 1 mage. She let out a cold laugh. Once you leave high school, you'll realize that common sense is more important than talent. This Lu Hao is clearly just reckless and ignorant. You're right, Sister Lin Wei, Zhou Ji agreed, smirking. Trash belongs with trash. He and Zhao Dapeng are perfect for each other. Su Wan stayed silent. She remembered the last time she saw me. She hadn't seen a fool. She had felt a terrifying, boiling energy radiating from my body. I stood in the shadows of the dungeon, waiting for Zhao Dapeng to lure the next wave of monsters. I wasn't wasting time. While I waited, I used my extraction ability on the scattered corpses of undead miners and pried loose ores from the damp walls. I counted over 100 pieces of red pattern iron and molten ore, along with 20 chunks of blue frost copper. It was a small fortune. To a normal person, these raw materials were only worth about 50,000 yuan. But to me, they were a gold mine. With my endless extraction, I could refine them into pure, high-grade ingots, increasing their value tenfold. I was literally turning stones into gold. We pushed deeper into the mine, trekking 3 kilometers through a winding tunnel until the path suddenly opened up. We both froze. It was a massive underground quarry, 300 meters wide with a ceiling that vanished into the darkness 30 meters above. Abandoned mine carts and rotting wooden scaffolds were scattered everywhere. And in the center, a sea of undead miners wandered aimlessly. Zhao Dapeng's face went pale. He knew the rumors about this place. If you startled one miner, the entire horde would wake up at once. It was the deadliest part of the dungeon. Brother Hao, can you handle this? He whispered, his voice trembling. I frowned. Even with my infinite mana, hundreds of level 16 monsters swarming from every direction would be a death sentence. I scanned the quarry, my eyes landing on the narrow tunnel we had just exited. A plan formed in my mind. I told him his job was about to get a lot harder. He looked like he wanted to vomit. You want me to pull all of them? He gasped. I didn't answer. I just raised my hands and began compressing fire elements into a tiny, dense point of light. I dropped the glowing spark onto the tunnel floor, and it vanished into the dirt. It was a fire blast trap, a skill I had just picked up from the mine blasters we killed earlier. Zhao Dapeng stared at me in shock. He realized that whatever I killed, I mastered. I spent the next 30 minutes burying 60 traps, spacing them 2 meters apart until they stretched 100 meters down the tunnel. While I worked, I made him keep digging for ore. He muttered something about how everyone called lifestyle workers useless, yet here I was, turning a nightmare dungeon into a profitable business trip. It was time. I told him to go. Zhao Dapeng took a deep breath, his muscles stiff with terror. He had to pull 1,000 monsters and lead them back without letting a single one touch him. If his movement was interrupted for even a second, he'd be swallowed by the tide. I watched him disappear into the quarry. I didn't offer any words of encouragement. In this world, if you want to grow, you have to pay the price in blood and sweat. 10 minutes later, the ground began to vibrate. A low rumble grew into a deafening roar of thousands of footsteps. They were coming. Zhao Dapeng burst into view at the end of the tunnel, sprinting like a man possessed. His face was bloodless, and he didn't even have the breath left to scream. Behind him, A literal wall of rotting flesh and rusted pickaxes surged forward. I narrowed my eyes, counting the distance. 100 meters. 80. Now. I whispered a single word. Detonate. A chain reaction of ear-splitting explosions ripped through the tunnel. The shock wave was so violent it sent rocks flying like shrapnel and shook the very foundation of the mountain. Zhao Dapeng was caught in the blast wave and sent flying through the air. Luckily, he had dumped all his points into agility. He twisted his body mid-air and landed hard right next to me. We both stared into the tunnel, which was now a roaring furnace of fire and smoke. The power was terrifying. I hadn't expected a Tier 2 chain explosion to be this destructive. When the dust finally settled, the silence was heavy. The wide tunnel was completely choked with the charred remains of the horde. Hundreds of level 16 nightmare monsters had been wiped out in an instant. Zhao Dapeng looked at the carnage, his voice shaking. "You killed them all," he whispered. "Every single one." Bright beams of leveling light erupted around us, one after another. The glow washed over my body twice, signaling 2 level-ups. But beside me, Zhao Dapeng was practically glowing like a sun. For distinct flashes of light hit him in rapid succession. He let out a piercing scream, his voice cracking with pure disbelief. He told me he just jumped 4 levels at once. He turned to look at me, his eyes wide with a sudden realization. He started babbling about the rumors back at the novice trial grounds. Everyone had been talking about a mysterious elite team that swept through the entire zone, leaving no monsters left for the other students. He told me he finally understood the truth. There was no elite team. It was just me. I had done it all alone. He was now level 13, and he was convinced I had just broken the record for the fastest leveling speed in decades. He called me his lucky star and said following me was the best decision he ever made. I ignored his praise and checked my own status panel. The massive harvest gave me nearly 200,000 experience points. I was now level 17, with 40,000 points toward the next rank. I had gained 12 free attribute points and 20 new storage slots. It felt incredible. Since entering this dungeon, I had already gained 3 levels. Zhao Dapeng started walking toward the pile of charred corpses in the tunnel, eager to see the loot. My eyes narrowed as I sensed a sudden shift in the air. I shouted his name, telling him to watch out. I activated haste immediately. I moved like an arrow released from a bow, sprinting toward him. A massive shadow loomed out of the darkness right in front of him. A long, whip-like tail cut through the air with a deafening whistle, aiming straight for his head. I didn't hesitate. I conjured a bursting fireball and hurled it. The explosion hit the shadow dead-on, forcing it back several steps. The whip missed its mark, slamming into the ground right next to Zhao Dapeng's hand. Stone fragments sprayed everywhere. Zhao Dapeng reacted quickly, sliding backward to create distance. I realized that despite the massive chain explosion, one monster had survived. I reached the giant shadow before it could recover. I didn't give it a chance to swing its whip again. I threw a heavy punch, the impact sending the creature flying backward. While it was still in the air, I launched another bursting fireball. The flames erupted, consuming the creature's body. The massive frame finally hit the ground with a heavy thud and stopped moving. A notification flashed before my eyes. My team had killed the Overseer leader boss. We gained over 2,000 extra experience points. Zhao Dapeng stared at the carcass, his jaw dropping. We had just taken down the boss of the entire mine.